The atmosphere inside the occult research club was suffocating. Hours had passed since their communication with Jin had been severed, the moment he boarded the bullet train. No one had left the room since part duty, part fear, and part the weight of knowing something irreversible was happening. When the air shimmered with teleportation magic and Graphia Lucifuge appeared, all eyes snapped to her. Her silver hair glinted faintly in the dim, gothic lamplight of the room, her expression as composed as ever. Yet the gravity she carried made the silence even heavier. Rias, seated on sofa with her peerage gathered around her, was the first to break it. So, how did it go? No one breathed. Even Akeno's usual teasing warmth was absent. Kiba's hand rested tensely on the back of his chair, and Konako's tail swished in sharp, irritated flicks as her eyes narrowed. Graphia's tone was crisp, unflinching. The Manji clan has been wiped out. Its warriors slain, its elders and children scattered. The women and survivors will retreat into hiding, though it will not change the fact that their foundation has been utterly destroyed. For a moment, no one spoke. Sana Satrai, who had come to Rias's club room to wait out the results, adjusted her glasses, her usual composure slipping. So that is the outcome. She murmured, almost to herself. What will the devil's official stance be on this matter, Graphia-san? The maid turned her head toward her. As was decided beforehand, non-interference. This was a matter born of human grudges, human mistakes, and human blood. Our hands will remain off this conflict. Sana's lips pressed into a thin line. She did not argue, she understood the reasoning, but her discontent showed in the slight hardening of her gaze. Behind her, Tsubaki shifted uneasily, while the rest of her peerage exchanged glances. Graphia gave no more, no less. She inclined her head again. If you will excuse me. I have matters to discuss with Lucifer-sama. Rias, remained silent. Her crimson eyes flickered with thought, fixed on Graphia. Why would she need to report directly to my brother if the outcome was so straightforward? And just like that, the silver-haired maid vanished in a shimmer of magic. The scene shifted. In the luxurious halls of the Lucifer, time seemed to move differently. The air was calmer, cooler, filled with the faint perfume of magical flora tended in crystal vases. Rare artifacts lined the shelves, relics of devil history, some glowing faintly with ancient power. Surtsk's Lucifer sat in his chair, posture relaxed yet imposing, his crimson hair glinting under the golden light of chandeliers. His expression was the same as ever, calm, unreadable, with just a trace of a smile that gave away nothing yet suggested he already knew. Graphia is standing in front of him, having told all the story. Surtsk laced his fingers together and leaned slightly forward, his voice measured. I see. So it is confirmed, then. The council's hand was in Claria Belial's death. Graphia's eyes lowered briefly. So how should we move, Mao-sama? Surtsk's smile thinned into something more contemplative. At present, we have only one source unverified. To speak carelessly would not only spread the information and give the culprit to hide evidence. Die Hauser is good at this game, but he was close to Claria, who know how he would react. Let us gather more proof. I want only you and my Piagi to proceed on this, Graphia. Once we do, then we shall consider how to proceed. Graphia inclined her head, already knowing at what conclusion Surtsk will reach. Speak. As you will. There was a brief silence. The weight of the fire, blood, and ruin unfolding across Japan felt far away here, cushioned by wealth and centuries of politics, yet it lingered in the room all the same. Then Surtsk's gaze sharpened, a faint glint of interest in his eyes. Now, tell me more about this Jin Kazuma. Jin lay flat on the bench, his hands wrapped tight around the cold, steel bar. The plates loaded on either side weren't the kind most men would even squat with, weights heavy enough that most would treat them as a deadlift challenge. But Jin didn't care. He had chosen this number because it sat right at the line between possible and madness. The barbell rattled slightly as he unracked it. He lowered it slowly, steadying the bar on his chest. His lungs expanded with controlled breaths, sweat already forming at his temple. Then he pressed. 1. Smooth, deliberate, testing the movement. His chest and arms tightened. 2. Controlled but heavy. This press told his body the weight wasn't there to be played with. 3. His jaw clenched, his shoulders bracing under the steel. The strain began whispering into his muscles. 4. His breath left him in a hiss. His arms trembled slightly. The bar felt heavier now, digging into his chest before he forced it upward. 5. His teeth ground together. His chest screamed with pressure, every tendon straining. 6. Sweat dripped down his forehead. His back arched as his body demanded relief, but he gave it none. 7. Now his muscles burned. The weight threatened to pin him and crush his ribcage. 8. His vision narrowed. The edges of the gym blurred, all that existed was the bar and his will. 9. His arms shook violently, his body close to betrayal. It was no longer about strength, it was refusal, and he refused to give in. 10. With sheer fucking willpower, a guttural growl in his throat, he locked out the final rep. The bar rattled into its rack as he slammed it home. For a long second he didn't move, chest heaving, sweat dripping onto the bench beneath him. His entire body thrummed with the aftershock. Jin had done it alone. Not because there wasn't anyone in the world who could not spotted him, but because he refused the very idea of relying on another. Out there, beyond these walls, no one would offer him a hand. He had accepted that. He welcomed it. The private gym, he bought this place with the money of the Manji clan. Their blood now funded his strength. A fitting irony. The door creaked open. Shikaku stepped in, carrying a bag heavy with groceries. He set it down by the counter, his face impassive. I brought your list, he said plainly. Fresh eggs. Meat. Milk. Veggies. Jin sat up, grabbing a towel to wipe the sweat from his face. Thanks. Shikaku didn't look at him as he unpacked. People have started asking about you. Jin took a slow drink from his water bottle, unsurprised. I already expected that. Which factions? Some human. Some church. Some devils too. Shikaku hesitated. How much do you want me to tell them? Enough to keep them satisfied, Jin answered, looking outside the gym. If it's humans, tell them about my strength. If it's the church, tell them my circumstances but not my character. If it's devils, tell them I'm connected to Rias. If it's Shinto, tell them about the Manji clan's doings. Shikaku finally looked at him. You realize what they really wants? First, they'll try to reel you in with favors or threats. But if you don't choose a side, you'll end up everyone's enemy. Jin's eyes shifted blood red, a single tomo spinning into existence. He locked Shikaku's gaze, his voice cutting like steel. I know. Don't play the hero. If someone comes asking about me, send them my way. Shikaku froze, his mind pierced by Jin's genjutsu. The weight of it left him silent until he finally exhaled, I understand. Jin closed his eyes, letting the tomo fade. A dull ache ran through his head. Fuck. Only able to manage that much, looks like it'll take time. He dragged himself off the bench and sat down heavily at the desk in the corner. The burn in his chest and arms still pulsed, a reminder of the war he fought with the weights. He cracked open a protein shake, the bitter taste washing down his throat. The gym was being used again by its one occupant. Evening settled over Kua Academy, the sun bleeding orange across the horizon. Rias Gremory sat quietly in her club room, her crimson hair spilling over her shoulders as her mind swirled with thoughts she could not push aside. Jin. She didn't understand why he lingered so heavily in her thoughts. To her, coming to Japan had been an escape from her family's suffocating expectations, from the arranged marriage that had been forced upon her, from the constant chains of being a Gremory. Here, she had wanted nothing more than to live the Japanese lifestyle, immerse herself in its rhythm, and simply, be herself. But her so-called freedom was always tainted by the shadow of her wedding. And now, strangely, Jin felt like the variable that could tilt the scale. Why? She couldn't explain it. It wasn't rational. It was instinct, her gut gnawed at her, whispering that if she wanted this curse lifted, if she truly wanted to break free, Jin was the one she would need to turn to. Yet Jin was an enigma. Aloof, detached, impossible to read. He carried himself as if the world held no weight over him, and that unsettled her. She was used to control, to people yielding to her charm, her power, or her name. Rias Gremory had always gotten what she desired. But with Jin, she couldn't place her hands around him. And that more than anything felt like a thorn in her mind, pricking and refusing to let go. He was clever. He had depth, character. That much she knew. And yet, the more she tried to grasp at him, the further away he seemed. Her train of thought was abruptly broken as her magic stirred. A faint pulse spread through her body, her contract seal flaring alive. Someone had summoned her. Nothing better to do, she decided to go. Her eyes narrowed as she wove her magic circle, teleporting without hesitation. The world twisted, and in the next instant she was standing beneath the dim light of a park. What greeted her made her breath catch. A boy lay sprawled on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. His breathing was shallow, his body trembling on the edge of death. Ria's eyes widened in recognition. Issei Hyudu. The notorious pervert. A boy who, until now, she had regarded as little more than an annoyance. But here he was, broken and bleeding, his contract with her screaming its final desperate cry. And despite his condition, despite the mortal wound ripping him apart, she could feel it. The sheer, stubborn will radiating from him. A will not to die. A desire so raw it seared through the magic. Stronger even than the drive she had once seen in Kiba. Ria stood frozen, torn. Her mind raced. Should she save him? Should she use a phoenix tear or a piece of her peerage on someone like Issei? He was just a human boy, barely remarkable, save for. Her thoughts tightened. A sacred gear. Yes. The boy is supposed to carry one. Low-ranked, perhaps. Nothing that could tip the balance of power on its own. Hardly worth the effort. And yet, that determination. That refusal to surrender even at death's door. Rias felt it thrumming in her bones, as if the boy's soul was clawing out for survival. She knew in that moment this was more than chance. Her heart hardened, her decision crystallizing. There was no time to waste. Kneeling beside him, her fingers brushed against her evil pieces. The crimson glow of her magic circle expanded beneath them, bathing the boy in its light. She pressed her piece into him, her wool lacing with her magic. You will not die here, Issei Hyudu, she whispered, her voice steady, commanding. The air pulsed as the piece sank into his chest, his body convulsing beneath her hand. You will live, as mine. As a devil of the House of Gremory. And with that, the reincarnation began. Jin sat by the window of his new house, staring out at the quiet streets of Kuaha. For some time now, his life had taken on an unusual calm. No blades drawn. No blood spilled. No life or death struggles. Just monotonous life. On the surface, it was peace. But to Jin, it felt hollow. He wasn't relaxed, he was restless. Bored. His thoughts gnawed at him, circling the same questions: what am I supposed to do with my life? What goal should I set? Goals, he mused, were meant to fulfill desire, to pull you forward into the future. But for him, nothing came to mind. His routine had shrunk into some things that not let his mind wander. Gym, home, sleep, repeat. He went nowhere else, met no one. His existence felt stagnant, like standing water left too long in a forgotten bowl. To make matters worse, his attack template, his new target, was crawling at a snail's pace. Barely 20%, even after all this time. The frustration gnawed at his chest, until it felt as if the walls themselves were contracting around him. Jin, not able to sit still, pushed himself to his feet. I should go outside, he muttered. The night air met him, cool and quiet, and he found himself wandering beneath Kuaha's neon glow. Where should I go? He thought. What should I do? Just stroll? Or maybe try the nightlife everyone talks about so much. And so, he drifted toward it. Dash. At Miami Club. Can't enter, kid, the bouncer said flatly. At Kitsune Club. Not happening, kid. Jin, fuck. Not finding a place, Jin is wandering. Eventually, Jin found himself on an empty sidewalk, cigarette between his fingers, smoke curling lazily into the night. His steps slowed, his face hidden in shadow. TCH. I really forgot my real body's real age. He exhaled, voice tired. Man, what should I even do? Maybe I should just head home. Jin saw an empty bench on the way, wandering all this time. Jin just want to sit, and so he sat, dragging another puff before letting the smoke drift into the star-strewn sky. For the first time in a while, he felt it loneliness, sharp and unshakable. And with that loneliness, came memory. He thought of his mother. Jan Kazuma. A small fragment of childhood surfaced, a warm kitchen light, the clatter of dishes. A younger Jin refusing to eat his vegetables, his mother chasing after him with mock sternness. Boy, you will eat those vegetables. He had laughed as he ran, and she had laughed too, the house alive with warmth. Now, staring at his hand, the cigarette dimming between his fingers, Jin whispered softly. Mother, looks like your son's picked up some bad habits. Oh, Mom. I miss you. Without you, this world feels endless. A horizon I can't reach. A silence I can't break. You were my anchor. And now I drift. Man with strength. But no shore to stand upon. Tell me, can you hear me in heaven? Do you still see me from above? Your son has grown. But he is lost. The future looms before me heavy. And I walk it alone. What path should I take? If you were here, would you scold me again? Laugh with me, again? Jin stopped speaking and flicked the cigarette to ground. He crushed the cigarette beneath his heel, stood, and began walking toward home. The streets were silent except of Jin boots and a flap of wings. A figure hovered above him, wings unfurled in dark glory. Oh, looks like someone misses their mommy, a cruel, sing-song voice mocked. Jin tilted his head upward. A girl, blonde hair tied into neat twin tails, eyes an icy blue, dressed in gothic Lolita frills, floated effortlessly, her lips curled into a smirk. Mitliet. A fallen angel. Jin's fallen. I have no business with you. Go away. She giggled, voice sharp and playful, dripping with malice. Era. Look at this little human daring to order me around. You're amusing. Maybe I'll keep you alive long enough to scream. Light flared in her hand, coalescing into a spear. Its glow lit the night, bathing her in a halo that mocked divinity. Get ready to die, insect. Jin, well, I warned you. He clenched his fists, flesh darkening, hardening skin taking on the sheen of unbreakable armor. The fight began in an instant. Mitliet dove, wings cutting through the air like blades, her spear thrusting downward. Jin raised an arm and caught it on his hardened skin. The force cracked the pavement under his boots, sparks spitting where light met flesh. She pulled back, spun midair, and hurled another spear down like a comet. Jin sidestepped, the weapon embedding into the asphalt, melting it in a hiss of steam. Slow, slow, she taunted, circling above him, laughter echoing in the night. Is this all? I thought you were supposed to be stronger. Jin's eyes tracked her. He didn't waste energy chasing her, instead, he studied her pattern, how she is maneuvering, pattern in her flight path. He was patient. Again, she dove, spear blazing white. Jin braced, letting it glance across his chest, sparks burning holes into his hardened armor. The heat stung, biting deeper than steel. He grunted, muscles straining, but remained standing. Oh, look at you. Standing tall like you're something more than prey. Cute. Her voice grated, but Jin didn't rise to it. His fingers twitched through subtle seals, chakra flowing into his hand. He crouched low, then at her next pass, he unleashed Fireball Jutsu. The massive ball of flame roared into the sky. Mitliet shrieked in surprise, pulling her wings hard, flames licking across her dress. The fabric singed, smoke curling. "Tchu dare," she spat, fury flashing as she flapped higher. Her retaliation came swift, spears raining from above in a deadly barrage. Jin weaved through them, each impact tearing chunks from the earth, light searing against his hardening. He felt burns trace across his ribs and shoulders. Getting tired, insect, she mocked, descending again. You can't hit what you can't reach. She dove recklessly, spear first, confidence swelling from the countless times he'd only blocked. This time, her weapon tore through his chest straight through. Her grin widened. And that's the end of. Jin's body exploded with smoke. Her eyes widened. What? From the shadow of a nearby tree, Jin burst forth, hands flashing with seals. At point-blank range, his chest heaved, and he expelled another roaring fireball jutsu. The explosion engulfed her, flames wrapping around her body. Mitliet screamed on pain, high-pitched and furious, as her porcelain skin blistered and blackened, her frilly dress catching fire. She flailed in the air, shrieking as smoke coiled around her like a cloak of death. But she was still alive. Jin didn't hesitate. His claws extended, gleaming under the moon, cloaked in toki. In a single bound, he drove his hand into her chest. The flesh tore, bones cracked, and his claws pierced through her heart. Mitliet's eyes went wide, disbelief frozen on her burned face. Why you can really use toki? Mitliet then coughed blood. Jin leaned close, his voice low, cold. What the point of getting curios at death door? Blood bubbled at her lips. Her wings spasmed once, then stilled. Her body went limp on his claws, before sliding free into the pavement. Jin stood over the corpse as it thudded against the ground. Jin exhaled and moved from there. Morning. The ruined chapel smelled of singed wax and cold stone. Candles lay toppled, their pools of blackened wax congealing across the flagstones. Stained glass windows, shards of colored glass glittered among splinters of pews and torn hymnals. Somewhere in the nave a cracked monstrance trembled on its side, an image of holiness desecrated and mute. Kalawarna sat on the front step of the altar, one leg tucked under her and the other tapping an impatient, nervous beat against the floor. Each impatient bounce sent her skirt and chest rising and falling, a rhythmic motion that did nothing to hide the edge in her eyes. She flattened a palm on her thigh, as if to steady herself, but her fingers trembled. Mitliet should have been back by now, she said, voice thin with worry. She rose on the last word and stalked a few paces toward the shattered lectern, toes scuffing the dust. I'm going to check on her. Donazik leaning against a ruined pillar, shoulders slumped. His gaze was on the ruin at his feet, his hands were folded into each other's. Forget it, he said without looking up. She's dead. Kalawarna's glare snapped to him like a drawn blade. Don't you say that. Don't. Donazik raised both hands, careful, conciliatory. I'm not saying I want that. I'm saying we can't afford to. He cut himself off, sighing, the tired sound of someone who'd already rehearsed every possible failure. You know how reckless she gets. If what we've heard is true, she must have made contact. That's not a thing that usually ends with a talk with her. Anger flared in Kalawarna's face. She strode to where Donazik stood and jabbed an accusing finger at his chest. Then we go after him. We find that human and we make him bleed for what he did. Or we go die there, Donazik shot back. Pick your revenge and count the cost. We are here for a mission, Mitliet was just supposed to observe, and if she had sit here quietly like always, I would been there and we wouldn't having this talk. Their voices rose, the argument. Both turned on a soft sound, Rainaray's laugh, barely audible, slipping from the broken altar where she perched like a dark bird. She dangled her legs over the edge, boots swinging in lazy circles. Her wings were folded, glossy but her posture held the calm of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Donazek is right, Rainier said, voice cool and measured. She let the words hang between them. We secure the sacred gear first. Then if there's time, if opportunity presents itself we deal with that boy. Kalawarna's jaw worked. She opened her mouth, shut it, and then the fury broke free in a short bark of laughter that was half sob. Secure the sacred gear? Rainier, that girl Mitliet, she confronted him because she thought she could handle him. You want to pick up a relic instead of hunting the throat of killer of our friend. Rainier's wings fluttered with the movement, a faint wind stirring ash across the altar. She did not rise. Instead she leaned forward a fraction, the lamplight catching the sharp line of her cheek. You will do as I say, she said, and her tone was a knife wrapped in silk. We do not have the luxury of sentiment. We cannot afford to throw ourselves at a human when we are on business here. If we act without leverage, we will be punished by our own. Silence closed around them for a breath. Kalawarna's hands curled into fists at her sides, her nails left crescents in her palms, but she did not speak. Rainier's gaze slid to Donazek. Prepare the ritual, she said, decisive now. We will bind the ward around the sanctum and get the gear tonight. Afterward we decide together how to proceed. Donazek's shoulders straightened. He bowed his head once, the movement practiced and brief. Understood. He stepped away from the pillar and began to move. Kalawarna watched him for a long moment, every muscle still primed for flight. Finally she inhaled, slow and controlled, and sat back down on the altar step. Her leg huffed another impatient beat. If that boy crosses Mitliet's name, I'll be the one to finish it, she said. But for now, the gear. Rainier's lips curved. It was not quite a smile, but something like satisfaction. Equals. Evening had tightened its grip over the city when Jin tuned the shuriken into the board. The metal sang through the range and buried itself dead center with a dull thunk. He drew another, spun it between thumb and forefinger, and loosed it in a practiced arc. The target answered with a crisp cut. An hour had blurred by in the rhythm of steel and breath. Jin's forearms burned pleasantly, the sharpening routine steadied the part of him that still wanted to break things. Sweat curled at his temple, darkening the collar of his shirt. He liked the simplicity of this room. Footsteps came soft on rubber matting. Jin didn't turn until the familiar silhouette slid into the doorway. Shikaku, eyes wide as if someone had punched the air from him. He moved with the exhausted gait of a man who'd been kept awake for too many nights. You finally breathed, Jin said. He dropped another shuriken and wiped his hand on a towel, then set the towel down and took a long pull from his water bottle. Shikaku took the sofa, shoulders sagging. He caught his breath twice before speaking. A group came asking for you, he said. Jin's lips twitched. Fallens. I knows. How? Shikaku's voice cracked. How did you know? Did you spy on me? Jin sat down on the opposite sofa and removed a fresh shuriken from its sheath, spinning it between his fingers like a metronome. Because I killed one last night. Shikaku inhaled sharply, horror and anger pushing together. Why would you do that? Fallen will come down on us. They'll wipe this place, me and you. Jin's eyes narrowed. He made a small, impatient gesture. Shut up. Don't think for me. I'll take care of Fallen. You. He cut himself off and shoved a hand through his hair. You should have told me. If they came asking, why didn't you signal me? Shikaku's shoulders tightened, he shoved his palms together, the familiar barked nerves resurfacing. Phones could be tracked. Messengers are not safe by magic. I came here after I told them about your house knowing you would be here. I thought. He stopped, unable to finish. Jin's expression went cold with frustrated appraisal. Next time, he said, voice clipped, use symbols. Spade for her Fallen. Goat for her devils. Sword for the church. Cloud for her Shinto. Up arrow for her heaven. Star for others. Drop a burner phone or leave the sign at the gym. Subtle. Disposable. Shikaku swallowed and nodded, relief and shame tangling across his face. Okay. I'll use that. Be careful. You better, Jin answered. Shikaku laughed, a humorless sound. With the money they give me for information I would treat them like king. With your support and money. I would be minister, in no time. The old one's already talking early retirement by some convicing. Thanks for your idea. Jin, who listening and thinking, asked a question earlier. What do you mean by you came here by telling them about my house? They didn't get my location yesterday. Yesterday, it was a little blonde girl who asked about you, Shikaku explained. Today, a busty woman showed up saying her friend had forgotten to tell her something. I didn't ask for more details. Jin stood abruptly, a grim expression on his face. Shit. I've got a bad feeling about this. Just outside Jin's house, the two men stood staring at the charred remains of the building. The flames licked at the skeleton of the structure, a testament to the destruction. Jin's face contorted with rage. I'm going to kill her. Shikaku, sweating and visibly nervous, desperately didn't want the situation to escalate with the fallen. Where did you say the old church was? Jin's voice was a low growl. Shikaku tried to keep his own voice calm, hoping to defuse the situation, but one look at Jin's face and the address spilled from his lips. He watched as Jin got in his car and sped away, leaving him standing there in the street. Well, Shikaku muttered to himself, shit. The moon hung like a silver coin in the velvet sky, its pale light draping the old church in an eerie glow. Damp earth and mildew thickened the air, the kind of atmosphere where whispered prayers once lingered but now only tension remained. Outside the perimeter, Ria's Gremory hovered effortlessly above the ground, her crimson hair fanning like a banner against the night. Her familiar had already alerted her to an approaching presence, a car cutting through the silence, heading straight toward the church. Her peerage Issei, Kiba, and Konako were already inside, locked in battle. The car skidded to a halt in a harsh screech of rubber on gravel. From it stepped Jin. He shut the door with deliberate weight, his gait sharp, purposeful. Rias turned, her eyes narrowing as recognition flared. First surprise, then irritation. Descending a little from her perch, she demanded, her voice slicing through the dark. Jin. What are you doing here? He lifted his gaze lazily, studying her figure in the air. Just some business. His lips twitched with dry humor. And you might want to come down, your panties are in broad view. A faint smirk tugged at Rias's mouth despite the sharp look in her eyes. She descended slowly, her aura curling faintly around her like smoke. Oops. My bad. Now, she pressed, annoyance threading her tone, already guessing Jin is coming here with purpose. What business do you have with the fallen? I told you not to stir trouble in my territory. And I told you to keep trouble away from me, Jin shot back, voice flat as stone. Her aura flared hotter, a ripple of destructive magic warping the air. If you've forgotten, I am the authority here. A low, cynical chuckle slipped from Jin. Authority? You can't even keep your own house in order. That jab hit. The magic around Rias surged, trembling the earth underfoot. Jin, unmoved, flexed his hand. His knuckles cracked, then split, and claws slid from his fingertips with the wet sound of tearing flesh. Their gazes locked, hers burning, his cold. The night held its breath, wind blowing. The tension broke when the figure stepped from church doors. Akeno Himejima emerged, her long black hair glinting under the moonlight, a smile soft but edged with something knowing. President, she said lightly, almost teasing, the priest in the basement has been handled with Konako and Kiba help. An Issei fight is nearly over. Jin's eyes flicked from Akeno back to Rias, weighing his options. His instinct screamed to keep the standoff, but his mind turned practical. Escalation here wasn't in his interest. Not tonight. One of the fallen burned down my house, he said simply. Rias's aura dimmed at once, though her pride held her posture rigid. See? Communication isn't that hard, she muttered, brushing a lock of crimson hair behind her ear. You always carry that grumpy, hard look. She turned without waiting for reply and strode back toward the church. Fine. You can come in. Akeno trailed after her, but not before pausing. She glanced over her shoulder at Jin, her lips curling into a suggestive smirk. With a slow, deliberate motion, she beckoned him forward. Jin stood for a heartbeat longer, watching the pair vanish into the church's shadow. A dry thought crossed his mind, tinged with bitter amusement. Well, look at this. Following a devil into a church. Not many can claim that. The air inside the dilapidated church was a mess of lingering magical energy and the acrid stench of burned flesh. Rias, Akeno, and Jin moved through the wreckage, their footsteps soft against the debris. They came upon a scene frozen in the aftermath of a battle, a bruised Issei Hyudu standing over the defeated form of Rainare. Issei noticed Rias and immediately lit up. Bucko. Rias smiled softly, stepping forward with her usual calm, her voice carrying that practiced elegance. You've done well, Issei. I believed in you from the very beginning. Jin, standing slightly off to the side, folded his arms and muttered under his breath, yet, not listening to that. Instead of intruding, he caught Akeno's eye and signed with simple hand gestures, I'll look around. Akeno arched a brow and, with her own gestures, asked, what exactly are you looking for? Jin hesitated, then pointed vaguely wings, then exaggeratedly motioned a curvy figure. He glanced over at Akeno, who noticed his silent cue. A look of curiosity, laced with playful mischief, flickered across her face. She gestured back, a simple, unspoken question, what are you looking for? Jin, not wanting to interrupt Rias's grand speech, struggled to find a way to convey his meaning. He pointed at his own back, then at the sky, mimicking the shape of large wings, and cupped his hands in front of his chest. Akeno's eyes widened with feigned innocence, and she unfurled her own bat-like wings, then looked down at her ample chest. She gave him a coy, knowing smile, as if to say, me? You want me? Jin's face went crimson. He broke into a series of frantic, Precise hand movements, true sign language this time. Can you understand sign language with your devil abilities? Akeno, her smile softening with genuine amusement, returned the gestures with graceful ease. Yes, but we have to learn it to communicate back, she signed. So you can understand it, but you have to learn it to communicate back. Jin signed, his face still warm with embarrassment. Akeno gave a small nod. Yes. Anyway, why are you looking for me? No, not you. Jin signed quickly, shaking his head. Asterisk the fallen with the big chest. Akeno's smile turned into a teasing smirk. Am I not enough? Stop teasing, Jin signed, his frustration clear. I want to check if she's really dead. She's in the basement, Akeno signed, finally dropping the act. Just then, Kiba and Konako joined them, their expressions turning to shock upon seeing Jin. Their conversation was cut short by a high-pitched voice. Bucko, who is that man? Issei's voice echoed through the church. All eyes turned to Jin, who in turn looked at Issei, the protagonist of this world, the heavenly dragon of this generation, with the potential to become the strongest. Rias looked from Jin to Issei, her expression calm. He is Jin Kazuma, a human fighter. What's he doing here? Issei asked, his curiosity piqued. He came to kill Kawainara, Rias explained, but unfortunately, she's already dead. Oh, I see. Hey man, I'm Issei Hyudu. Issei said, waving. Jin gave a small nod. Jin Kazuma. Cool, man, a human fighter. Issei grinned. Who's stronger? Bucko or you? Everyone's eyes shifted to Jin. Even Rias tilted her head slightly, curious at his answer. So you can understand it, but you have to learn it to communicate back. Jin signed, his face still warm with embarrassment. Akeno gave a small nod. Yes. Anyway, why are you looking for me? No, not you. Jin signed quickly, shaking his head. Asterisk the fallen with the big chest. Akeno's smile turned into a teasing smirk. Am I not enough? Stop teasing, Jin signed, his frustration clear. I want to check if she's really dead. She's in the basement, Akeno signed, finally dropping the act. Just then, Kiba and Konako joined them, their expressions turning to shock upon seeing Jin. Their conversation was cut short by a high-pitched voice. Bucko, who is that man? Issei's voice echoed through the church. All eyes turned to Jin, who in turn looked at Issei, the protagonist of this world, the heavenly dragon of this generation, with the potential to become the strongest. Rias looked from Jin to Issei, her expression calm. He is Jin Kazuma, a human fighter. What's he doing here? Issei asked, his curiosity piqued. He came to kill Kawainara, Rias explained, but unfortunately, she's already dead. Oh, I see. Hey man, I'm Issei Hyudu. Issei said, waving. Jin gave a small nod. Jin Kazuma. Cool, man, a human fighter. Issei grinned. Who's stronger? Bucko or you? Everyone's eyes shifted to Jin. Even Rias tilted her head slightly, curious at his answer. So you can understand it, but you have to learn it to communicate back. Jin signed, his face still warm with embarrassment. Akeno gave a small nod. Yes. Anyway, why are you looking for me? No, not you. Jin signed quickly, shaking his head. Asterisk the fallen with the big chest. Akeno's smile turned into a teasing smirk. Am I not enough? Stop teasing, Jin signed, his frustration clear. I want to check if she's really dead. She's in the basement, Akeno signed, finally dropping the act. Just then, Kiba and Konako joined them, their expressions turning to shock upon seeing Jin. Their conversation was cut short by a high-pitched voice. Bucko, who is that man? Issei's voice echoed through the church. All eyes turned to Jin, who in turn looked at Issei, the protagonist of this world, the heavenly dragon of this generation, with the potential to become the strongest. Rias looked from Jin to Issei, her expression calm. He is Jin Kazuma, a human fighter. What's he doing here? Issei asked, his curiosity piqued. He came to kill Kawainara, Rias explained, but unfortunately, she's already dead. Oh, I see. Hey man, I'm Issei Hyudu. Issei said, waving. Jin gave a small nod. Jin Kazuma. Cool, man, a human fighter. Issei grinned. Who's stronger? Bucko or you? Everyone's eyes shifted to Jin. Even Rias tilted her head slightly, curious at his answer. Jin, no longer holding back his frustration, spoke freely. Look at your system, man. It's buggy. The interface is shit, and it doesn't even give an accurate measurement of how much strength I have gained from the characters during progress. The progress spikes and then stalls for no reason. Well, you're right, A replied, a flicker of admission in his tone. It's a prototype of a prototype. I just threw it together at our first meeting. Hearing A admit a mistake and actually listen for the first time, Jin felt a surge of validation. He pressed on. And look at Ataka's progress. Why can't I get past 50%? I'm stuck at 3 Tomo. Do I have to go through some traumatic experience to go forward? I thought you said the progress wouldn't depend on feelings or emotion. A's figure shimmered. He pulled out a notebook and started scribbling, then a ball of shimmering code floated from Jin and into a hand. Well, you're right again, A said, examining the code. Your emotions are being affected, but not entirely. It looks like you've been in similar situations as the characters, and your emotions aligned with the template, which is why there was 100% integration. Amazing. Let me take out the redundant code from it. This will make the system run smoother. With a few precise movements, he pulled out the Taishiksha, Ajiro Kiri's Hima and Wolverine templates from the system code. They were no longer needed. Jin watched A treat the entire situation like a fun little experiment, a casual distraction. A cold wave of anger swept over him. You know, you lack professional ethics, Jin said, his voice low and tight. You're doing this half-heartedly, and it's putting me in danger. What if those templates started to overwrite my emotions? I would never have known. You need to do better. A looked at Jin's frustration, and a flash of empathy crossed his face, remembering what Jin had been through. He backed down a little. Yes, it my bad, man. Yes, you better be, Jin muttered, his voice still edged with accusation. A, who was just being polite, stopped. He had been about to return to his notebook, but now he looked up, his face hardening. Ego hurt. What did you just say? I better be. He gave a dry, humorless laugh. Look at you, getting arrogant. You know what? Fuck this. His image glitched for a moment, and his voice went cold. No more system for you. Jin stared at him, a mix of disbelief and defiance on his face. What, did your ego get hurt, huh? First, you make mistakes and break your word, and then when I call you on it, you threaten me. Oh, shut up, A sneered. I have decided, and what can you do now? Jin's gaze turned sharp as he spoke the thought that had been at the back of his mind for a while now. You think you can do whatever you want? I can. Jin felt a momentary advantage. What about the V's? Those who select the templates? I'm sure they wouldn't be happy about this. A froze for a moment, stunned. How do you know about them? He asked. You sometimes speak aloud, dipshit, Jin shot back. Now, we don't have to escalate this. You just work better on the system and give it back to me. A's wide eyes narrowed, a slow smirk spreading across his face. You know what? Eat shit. I'm not going to. What do you mean you're not going to? Jin demanded. You have to. Not going to means not going to, A repeated, his voice dripping with condescension. Whatever they and I have is at the beginner stage, man. I can just flunk it at any time. Now what are you going to do? Jin's bravado shattered. His eyes went wide with shock as he realized his threat was empty. Look at you, A's image loomed closer, a patronizing look on his face. Thinking you had it all figured out. You arrogant ass, thinking you could strong-arm me like you have been others. Huh? What are you going to do now? You forgot we were never friends. If you want friends to listen to your feelings, go make some. A's voice turned deadly serious. Now you've lost your source of power. You're dead meat. Some powerful supernatural is going to come and make you their lab rat. What are you going to do? The cold reality of his situation hit Jin like a physical blow. He looked at A, his defiance gone, replaced by a desperate humility. Taking the best course of action. I'm sorry. A was momentarily stunned, not expecting the apology. It's too late, you know. I have no need to give you power, and I've been giving it to you for free, and you abuse me in return. Fuck you, man. I'm sorry, man, Jin said again, his voice sincere as he faced his mistake. I was frustrated, and I let it out on you. A remained silent for a long moment, simply looking at Jin. He let out a long, slow breath. Fuck you, man. Okay, I forgive you. So, can I get my system back? Jin asked, a flicker of hope in his eyes. No, you won't. You have to suffer. At least there must be an alternative, Jin said, not giving up. A seemed to let go of his own anger, too. Well, I also fucked up. So let's see. I originally wanted to give you 13 templates. I was going to give you 1 summon and 1 item. But you can forget about those now. Hey, man, you don't have to be that harsh, Jin protested. Okay, A conceded, you're on 4 templates now. I'll give you 2 more templates and 1 power item, whatever I decide on, and I will decide when you get them. Man, you can do better than that, Jin tried to negotiate. No negotiation now, A said firmly. I'll let you choose 1 template now. You better give me 3 choices. Jin fell silent, his mind racing. He had to make this count. He couldn't afford to screw this up again. He rattled off 3 names he'd been thinking about. Man, how about Broly, Invincible, or Garu? Look at you, trying to get the good stuff, sneered. But no. You told me I'd have more freedom in my choices, and now you're restricting me, Jin said, feeling a new wave of frustration. Well, that's because of you. And now I will restrict you really now. You can only choose from one piece. Jin, not wanting to push his luck again, changed his mind. Man, how about Luffy, Roger, or Rox DZ? A smiled evilly. No. Jin's jaw dropped. Man, you can't do this. This is cheating. I am doing it. Okay, how about Kaido, Whitebeard, and Garp? Jin asked, his voice strained. Okay, A said, a strange light in his eyes. Let's see what the V's decide. Kaido. Whitebeard. Garp. Warning, you can skim this chapter if you want, this chapter is like last, some would not find it appropriate. A and Jin sat together, munching on snacks as they watched a one-piece fight unfold on a large screen. Looks like you got Whitebeard, A said, taking a handful of popcorn. Yeah, that's good, Jin replied, a subtle hint of disappointment in his voice. I was secretly hoping for Kaido. Well, what can we do now? Why did you prefer Kaido anyway? I'd say Whitebeard is stronger, based on the anime. We can't be sure about that, can we? Jin countered. And Kaido fighting Luffy was truly mesmerizing. His quote, "Haki rules everything," was dope. Anyway, do I also have to deal with seasickness? Oh, you don't have to worry about that. A leaned back, getting into lecture mode. In the One Piece world, people gain devil fruit abilities by wishing to be something more. As Vegapunk said, they're going against the world order. They become something they weren't meant to be, so they reject nature's order, and in return, nature refuses to acknowledge them. So they're changing the world order? Jin asked, connecting the dots. Yes, A confirmed. Just like you and me, Jin continued, his eyes widening with realization. We wouldn't have been in that world originally, but you and I changed that. A was impressed. You don't have to worry about the world rejecting you. I took care of that by making Jin Kazuma born and survive until you got there. Your body and soul is now part of that world. I see, Jin said, understanding more now. That's why you also mixed my soul with that guy's, so I wouldn't be rejected both physically and spiritually. Bravo, A said, a rare note of genuine approval in his voice. When you're cool-headed, you think thoroughly. Well, I guess that means I owe you. Thanks, Jin said, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. Man, your emotions are all over the place, A chuckled. You don't owe me anything, I was the one who transmigrate you. Before, you were practically seeing me as an enemy you had to get things from. Now you're all friendly. I guess I was burning out, Jin admitted. Anyway, let me ask another question. If the world isn't rejecting me, what about you? Do you not suffer any consequences? I'm beyond that, A replied, his voice a little too quick. And this world is just another side-by-side timeline. You're thinking about things that are way beyond your time. Chill out. So, whenever you interact with me, you're changing the world order. Jin pressed, his gaze intent. How did you come to that conclusion? A asked, somewhat surprised. But yes, you're right. Smile forming on a lips. So whenever you're interacting with me, you're changing how the world would have normally gone, Jin said, his voice flat. Man, you're boring me, A sighed. What do you want? Let's forget about this and move on. I am gonna get in trouble. No, you gotta answer, Jin said firmly. Now, confirm or deny it. A's relaxed posture vanished. He admitted. Well, we would have had this conversation much later, but let's just rip the bandage off. Yes, I changed the world order to make sure you could live. Well, I don't want that, Jin said, his voice now cold. Why? A asked, baffled. You get free plot armor. Why are you throwing it away? Because I know then I'll never grow. The moment I awaken Toki, I have been feeling something is wrong with how I am growing stronger. Jin shot back. If I follow your design, I'll just be a rat chasing one thing after another, completely dependent on you and system. Well, I've already reduced our chances of meeting, considering that. I originally thought of giving you 13 templates because I knew by the end, you'd be at the top of the food chain. But considering your personality changing, I lower it and you awakening Toki really make things out of my hand. So you called me here, already considering all possibilities? Jin asked, his voice shaking with a quiet rage. You speak aloud again, dipshit. A's smile widened. Oops. I don't want another thing from you, Jin said, his voice dropping to a low growl. This is the last time we'll ever be meeting. Look, man, I know it feels foreign going against the world changing according to one's wishes, but you have to understand, I'm here for you. Maybe the static is using you to keep me out. Did I interfere too much? What do you mean? Jin asked, his mind racing. What did you just say? And not again, I speak aloud again. Gibberish, A said quickly, waving a dismissive hand. Ignore it. I am not meeting you again, A, Jin stated. Your call, man. So what do I do with the power I still have to give you in one more template? A feeling of deep unease washed over Jin. I don't want it. Looks like I'm suffering from success, man, A said to himself, a frustrated look on his face. He then turned serious. A looks at Jin seeing him start to vanish. Hey, listen to me carefully. I have to give you 7 gifts. Don't ask why, it's just a universal number thing, 3, 7, 11. You have to have them, that's the minimum. Now listen, you can't have a new power because you already have 2 templates on you. You can't have a template right now. Ask for some item or something else, and I'll make sure it reaches you. Give me some martial arts, Jin said, and in an instant, he vanished. A was left alone, sighing. Man, half-assing this is really going to bite me in the ass sometime. He then looked at a glowing white screen that appeared in front of him and words start to appear on it. Dear reader, I know this episode has been a bit of a shit show and things have been all over the place, but please trust me, I'm trying new things. Should I give more explanation? A muttered. I hear your concerns and I'm taking notes on this. Given how things have been going, we might not have a vote for some time, so please be patient with me. From the next episode, everything will be smooth, and this sudden interruption to your immersion and world building won't happen again. Well, that's just an excuse, A said to himself. Things are out of my hands now. I am forever open to your suggestions. If you don't like the direction, please write below what you've liked so far and what improvements you'd like to see. Looks like this is the last time I'll be able to do something like this, A said, a hint of sadness in his voice. Please also drop some martial art names to be selected from. It could be from the Murim world or something like Garu. Bye. Man, this might hurt my story, but let's see what happens. Better to give a warning first. A then lazily opened his laptop and started watching a movie. Dear reader, I know this episode has been a bit of a shit show and things have been all over the place, but please trust me, I'm trying new things. I hear your concerns and I'm taking notes on this. Given how things have been going, we might not have a vote for some time, so please be patient with me. From the next episode, everything will be smooth, and this sudden interruption to your immersion and world building won't happen again. I am forever open to your suggestions. If you don't like the direction, please write below what you've liked so far and what improvements you'd like to see. Please also drop some martial art names to be selected from. It could be from the Murim world or something like Garu. Bye. The Underworld's Grand Council Chamber was a cathedral of towering obsidian pillars and softly burning braziers, filling the air with the mingled scents of brimstone and ceremonial incense. In the vast, amphitheater-like hall, the noble houses of the underworld were gathered, lords and ladies in elegant attire, their advisors and retainers standing in silent attendance, all arrayed according to their deep-seated factional leanings. Upon the dais, the 4 Satans presided over the session with quiet authority. For once, nearly all were in attendance. Only the notable absence of Rezevim Levon Lucifer lingered like a shadow. He seldom wasted time on politics unless mischief was on the agenda. The announcer, a cloaked figure at the center podium, presented the next matter with a formal bow. The following issue concerns the heiress of the Gremory clan, Lady Rias Gremory, and her engagement to Riser Fenix. Lord Fenix has requested to advance the date of marriage. Lady Rias is opposed to this alteration. Both families have agreed to resolve the dispute through a rating game. A wave of discontent rippled through the chamber. Such a private, familial dispute being aired before the full council was a breach of decorum, and the disapproving whispers rose like a tide. An elderly noble from the Old King faction rose, his cane clacking sharply against the marble floor. Humph! A marriage quarrel brought before this body? Ridiculous, he stated, his voice dry with contempt. The girl should honor her betrothal. Her duty is to the preservation of her bloodline, not her personal schedule. Another joined in, his voice harsh and dismissive. Indeed. The heiress of Gremory should not trifle with tradition. Let her wed and produce heirs, as is expected. It is unbecoming to waste this council's time. Across the hall, a younger lord aligned with the new faction countered smoothly. And yet, is it not equally unbecoming to rush her into this marriage? Lady Rias is younger than her intended, with fewer years to build her peerage. By the very spirit of the rating game system, this haste is unusual and puts her at a distinct disadvantage. Sana Citrai leaned forward, observing intently. Her father, Lord Citrai, had brought her to witness firsthand how devil politics unfolded. He stroked his beard as he watched the factions trade barbs. See, Sana. This is how the old guard moves, he murmured to her. Their instinct is always to preserve bloodline purity. But notice how the younger lords press for fairness and adherence to the system. There lies the divide between the old king and new factions. Before further debate could spiral, the announcer raised his voice again. There is an additional request. Lady Rias Gremory petitions the Council for permission to employ an outside contract an individual not of her peerage to participate in the rating game on her behalf. The chamber's quiet disapproval erupted into a chorus of indignant objections. Absurd. A flagrant disregard for the rules. Who does she think she is, bending tradition to her fancy? The uproar swelled until Surtsk's Lucifer stirred. For the first time that session, the crimson-haired Satan let a fraction of his power bleed into the air. It was not a wave, but a gravitational collapse. The air grew dense and cold, the light from the braziers seemed to shrink, and the very shadows deepened, clinging to the floor like pools of ink. The noise died instantly. Let the announcer finish. His words carried absolute authority. Even the most stubborn of nobles sank into silence. Across the aisle, Lord Bale, patriarch of the Bale clan and head of the Old King faction, raised his deep, gravelly voice. Lucifer speaks truth. Let us hear the petition in full. Sana's father leaned closer to his daughter, voice low. Watch carefully, Sana. By addressing Surtsk without the Sama honorific, he subtly asserts his own standing while appearing to agree. A master class in political maneuvering. He signals strength to his allies and courtesy to a rival, all in 3 words. The announcer cleared his throat and pressed on. Lady Rias reminds the council that minor debt are owed to her person, and requests that these favors be repaid now specifically, by granting her permission to take one external ally into the game. The chamber shifted into low, strategic discussion. The outrage was replaced by calculation. It is only one ally, a new faction noble spoke cautiously. Given her age and lack of a complete peerage, should this not be considered reasonable? Another replied, voiced sharp with suspicion. Reasonable? What if this ally is of such strength that the contest ceases to be fair? An ultimate class being would make the game entirely moot. This is no small matter. An older devil from the old faction snorted. There is no precedent. If we allow this once, others will demand the same. A dangerous path. Lord Citrai glanced down at his daughter. See their hesitation? The new faction favors leniency but fears precedent. The old faction clings to law. Yet both sides circle the same worry maintaining the integrity of the system. The discussion continued until a compromise was murmured into form. If the council allows this request, the chosen outsider must be evaluated. Their power cannot exceed Lady Rias herself. Only then can the integrity of the rating game be preserved. Murmurs of assent rippled through both camps. The question remained, who would judge this evaluation? It was then Lord Bale rose again. His voice rumbled through the hall. Then let Lord Lucifer himself be the arbiter. Who else could weigh the matter without bias? The chamber fell into silence, all eyes turning to Surtsk's. Sana frowned and whispered, why would Lord Bale nominate Lord Lucifer? Wouldn't that risk Surtsk's favoring his sister? Her father smiled thinly. That is precisely why. It is a perfect political trap. If Surtsk shows favoritism, he loses credibility. If he rules fairly, Bale gains prestige for proposing the solution. He has put Surtsk in the spotlight, and either outcome benefits his own position. Clever, isn't it? Sana nodded slowly, the pieces clicking into place. Her father's eyes narrowed as the debate subsided. What puzzles me, though, is why Lady Rias brought this matter before the council at all. By doing so, she makes her defiance public. A private request to Surtsk could have avoided all this. His hands are now tied. Her true motive in this? I suppose I will have to ascertain that from her directly, Sana offered, her tone thoughtful. Her father studied her face, then exhaled with a faint smile. Maybe. Whatever her reason, she has shown the council her resolve to stand on her own feet. In this hall, such a display of will is remembered. Good for her. As the matter closed, father and daughter turned their eyes back to the dais, watching the next agenda rise into the chamber. The rhythmic count permeated the cavernous space of the private gym, each number a sharp exhalation of effort. 98, 99, 100. Jin Kazuma racked the barbell, the plates on either side groaning under a weight that would crush a normal man. He sat up, his breathing steady, barely breaking a sweat. His strength had long since surpassed any conventional threshold. A sharp, electronic chime suddenly cut through the silence. The doorbell. Jin's focus narrowed. The building was his private sanctuary, converted for his specific needs and deliberately inaccessible to the public. Whoever was at the door hadn't stumbled upon it by accident, they had come looking for him. Wiping his neck with a towel slung over his shoulder, he moved toward the entrance. He swung the heavy door inward and was met with a surreal sight. 3 figures stood on his doorstep, their regal bearing clashing with the stark functionality of his gym. A man with striking crimson hair regarded him with an analytical gaze, seeming to measure him from head to toe. Beside him, the girl, Rias Gremory, offered a bright wave. Behind them stood a maid with silver hair, her posture one of perfect, professional stillness. Hello, Jin, Rias said, her voice cheerful. Hope we're not disturbing you. Rias, Jin acknowledged with a nod. What brings you here? I came to see you, of course. Aren't you going to invite us in? She prompted with a playful smile. Jin blinked, a flicker of realization crossing his face as he remembered his manners. Oh. Right. Please, come inside. He stepped aside, and they entered, their eyes taking in the unique aesthetic of the building. It was undeniably a gym, with rows of formidable machines, yet it was softened by carefully placed plants and a design that blended industrial steel with natural elements, creating a strangely serene atmosphere. So, this is what humans call a gym, the red-haired man mused, more with genuine curiosity than judgment. Surtsk met Jin's gaze and extended a hand. Forgive my manners. I am Surtsk, Rias's older brother. Jin shook his hand firmly. Jin Kazuma. And yes, I had a designer rework the space. It's a magnificent training area, Surtsk commented, his eyes scanning the equipment. I have one as well, though it lacks these fascinating machines. Most of them are starting to lose their value for me, anyway, Jin said dismissively, before gesturing toward a sitting area furnished with simple but comfortable sofas. Please, have a seat. I'll get some water. As he turned, the silver-haired maid spoke for the first time, her voice polite but firm. Please, Master Jin, allow me. You are the host. Jin paused and looked at her. My name is Grafia, she explained, sensing his unspoken question. I am Surtsk-sama's maid. Okay, Jin replied. Thanks for the offer, but you're a guest here. Please, sit. He didn't give her a chance to rebut, immediately heading off to fetch the drinks. An amused smile touched Surtsk's lips as he watched Grafia stand for a moment, looking uncharacteristically dumbfounded. Rias had to stifle a chuckle. Why don't you sit down, Grafia? Surtsk pointed to a sofa. It seems he won't be taking no for an answer. Grafia sat down with a slight, awkward stiffness, a faint blush rising on her cheeks as Surtsk gave her a teasing smirk. Jin returned with glasses of water, handed them out, and took a seat opposite them. This is going much better than my last visit, Rias remarked. Jin gave her a deadpan look. Who in their right mind appears in another person's bedroom in the middle of the night? He then shifted his gaze to her brother. So, what brings the ruler of the underworld to my doorstep? Surtsk's smile didn't falter. So you know. Rias did mention you were aware of the supernatural world. Jin nodded. Red hair, brother of Rias Gremory. It's not hard to deduce you're Surtsk's Lucifer. You seem quite comfortable, knowing that, Surtsk observed. Most people are sweating by now. You showed me the courtesy of using the front door, Jin said, pointedly glancing at Rias. Oh, drop it already, she groaned. No, Jin replied flatly. You two seem quite friendly, Surtsk noted. We're acquaintances, Jin corrected. I've met her twice. The other times, she was just peeping on me. Rias sighed. He has some screws loose. If you do things in what he considers the correct order, he's fine to talk to. Otherwise. So, you're just being hospitable? Surtsk asked Jin, getting to the heart of it. Jin considered them for a moment before deciding on the truth. I'm offering you the same respect you've shown me by coming here properly. Besides, I don't get many visitors. I'm open to it. He leaned forward slightly. Now, why are you really here? Seeing her chance, Rias took the lead. I need your help. Jin tilted his head, feigning confusion. Your brother is one of the 4 Satans. You'll have to be more specific. I'm engaged to a high-class devil named Riser Phoenix, Rias explained, her tone becoming serious. I don't want the marriage, but he's pushing for it to happen immediately. Due to devil politics, I can't simply break the contract. To resolve it, we've agreed to a rating game. So, if he wins, you marry him. If you win, the engagement is off, Jin summarized. Yes. I still don't see where I fit in, Jin said. I've already told you I won't join your peerage. My answer on that hasn't changed. I know, Rias said quickly. I'm not here to ask that. I'm here to ask, as a favor, will you help me in this game? Jin looked at her earnest, hopeful face, then scanned the unreadable expressions of Surtsk and Grafia. He brought his gaze back to Rias. I appreciate you asking me directly this time instead of just expecting me to follow along. But my answer is no. Rias's face fell. I have no reason to help you, Jin continued calmly. I don't need compensation, and helping you would put me more directly on the supernatural radar. Your brother's political opponents would see me as a target, and since I'm not in your peerage, I'd be fair game. I'm just a human. Frankly, this visit alone could bring me trouble. Rias fell silent, clearly not having considered that angle. Surtsk, who had been listening intently, finally spoke. Tell me, Jin. Are you truly afraid of trouble? Jin met the Satan's gaze. Honestly? No. But I don't think you have anything lucrative enough to make me take on that kind of risk. Do you, Rias? Rias looked flustered, trying to think of something she could possibly offer that would tempt him. Forgetting what she was going to offer. Don't worry, Surtsks interjected smoothly. We have something lucrative enough. That is, if you aren't a coward. Rias shot her brother a worried look, remembering she'd told him how poorly Jin responded to being provoked. Grafia, however, sent a silent, telepathic message to her. Rias-sama, do not worry. Surtsk-sama and Jin-san are negotiating. They have been since we arrived. This is merely part of the process. Jin's expression didn't change. And what might that be? Surtsks retrieved a folded note from his coat and slid it across the table. Jin picked it up and read the single line of text, I will help you investigate your mother's murder. If you accept, fold this and place it in your right pocket. I will communicate with you via magic asterisk. Without a word, Jin folded the note and slid it into his pocket. A moment later, Surtsk's voice echoed directly in his mind. So, do you accept? How much do you know? Jin sent back. Very little, for now. The job was pulled off with extreme discretion. But you will have all the information I come across. I agree. Rias doesn't learn of this. Speaking normally again, Jin looked at Surtsks and said, I agree, on one condition. You will provide me with the best texts you have on human magic theory. He then turned to Rias. And I will ensure you don't just win, you dominate. A faint smile played on Surtsk's lips. Jin was cleverly creating a cover story while also trying to squeeze more out of him. He decided to play along. It's a deal. One more question, Jin said. Why me? Surely you could have found someone else. Because I have a feeling that with you, I can win, Rias answered honestly. Then it's a deal, Jin confirmed. So, how are you planning to get me into an official rating game? That's already been handled, Surtsks explained. The council has granted a special dispensation for one outsider to join her team, provided their power is less than Rias's. Jin raised an eyebrow. I'm not that much weaker than she is. In terms of raw demonic power, you are, Surtsks corrected. We measure strength by those reserves. Your mana and Toki reserve are negligible compared to her demonic energy. The councils would not have issue with you. I see, Jin said, a slow grin spreading across his face. Good. They'll underestimate me. So, Rias, what's the strategy? Rias looked at him blankly. I don't have one yet. Jin stared. What's the composition of your fiancé's peerage? I don't know. Surtsks let out a hearty laugh. It seems you are in good hands now, little sister. He stood, and Grafia rose with him. It was a pleasure speaking with you, Jin. We'll take our leave now. Grafia gave Jin a respectful bow before following her master out the door. Jin was left alone with Rias, the full weight of the task he had just accepted crashing down on him as he looked at his completely unprepared client. Shit, he muttered. The following day. A deep-throated growl echoed down the street, turning the heads of every uniformed student heading toward Kua Academy. A sleek black motorcycle carved its way through the morning traffic before pulling to a smooth stop at the school gates. The rider, Jin Kazuma, swung a leg over the seat, his presence a stark contrast to the mundane school morning. He wore a red biker jacket over a vibrant Hawaiian shirt, paired with worn jeans and dark sunglasses that hid his eyes. He was an immediate magnet for attention. The sea of students parted around him, their gazes a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and envy. Who is that guy? A girl whispered to her friend, fanning her suddenly flushed face. He's intense. Is he a new student? No way. Maybe a transfer teacher. Meanwhile, the boys looked on with a mixture of resentment and grudging respect. TCH, look at that show-off, one muttered, though his eyes betrayed a hint of jealousy. One student, his eyes wide with recognition, pointed a shaky finger. Tyler Durden, he breathed in awe, before his friends quickly clamped a hand over his mouth and dragged him inside the gates. Jin took off his helmet, running a hand through his hair as he approached the entrance. Standing there, clipboard in hand like a sentinel, was Sana Satrai. Rias had already informed her of his visit, but seeing his flamboyant style in person seemed to rub the student council president the wrong way. Was it necessary to make such a conspicuous entrance, she asked, her tone clipped and cool. Jin glanced around at the staring students, then back at her with a deadpan expression. This is me being normal. Where's the parking, and which way to the occult research club? A tick mark pulsed on Sana's temple. She fought the urge to deny him entry, took a steadying breath, and pointed stiffly. Parking is to the right. From there, go straight across the campus. You can't miss the old school building. Thanks. Jin put his helmet back on, swung onto his bike, and headed toward the parking lot. As he passed Sana, he gave the throttle a deliberately sharp, roaring rev. Sana, who had been gripping a mechanical pencil, jumped at the sudden noise. A sharp crack echoed in the quiet as the graphite inside shattered. She spun around to glare at him, but he was already gone. President, Tsubaki Shinra said calmly from beside her. I will handle morning duties. Perhaps you should take a short break. Jin found his way to the dilapidated old building and pressed the doorbell. The door swung open almost immediately, revealing Akeno Himejima with a warm, knowing smile. Era. You're early, Jin-san, she purred. Akeno-san, Jin greeted with a nod. Akeno turned, leading him inside with a gentle sway of her hips. What's the matter, Jin-san, she teased over her shoulder. This is the second time you've followed me in such a short period. My path just seems to lead to you, Jin countered smoothly. So you tell me, why do you keep calling me to you? Akeno giggled, a sound like little bells. So it's me who has been calling you. You do seem to be in all the right places. Era, you're quite the smooth talker, she said, pausing to open the main club room door. Inside, Rias and the rest of her peerage were seated, drinking tea. Welcome, Jin, Rias said. I hope you didn't have trouble finding your way. Jin's eyes flickered to Akeno. No trouble at all. Akeno led the way beautifully. Akeno brought a hand to her mouth, hiding a sly smile as a low growl rumbled from Issei's direction. So, Akeno asked, her gaze lingering on Jin. Would you like some tea, or perhaps, something else? Jin met her eyes, a smirk playing on his lips. Something else. He let the words hang in the air for a beat before adding, a soda would be great. Akeno's smile widened. Of course, she said, turning to get his drink. Something is definitely going on here, Issei muttered under his breath. Rias ignored him, pushing a file across the table toward Jin. I got the information you asked for. Jin picked up the file and skimmed its contents just as Akeno returned with a can of soda. He took it with a nod of thanks, set the file down, and popped the can open. So, he said to the room. What are your thoughts on this? What's in the file? Issei asked, leaning forward. Jin raised an eyebrow at Rias. Don't tell me you haven't shared this with your entire peerage yet. Rias looked slightly embarrassed. Well, Akeno and I were just going over it when you arrived. Jin sighed and handed the file to Kiba. Everyone reads this. Now. He then turned back to Rias. While they do that, tell me what strategy you've come up with. Well, Rias began, my peerage members have the advantage in quality, but Riser's team is much larger. I was thinking my peerage would engage his, holding them off and defeating them one by one. Then, while they're distracted, Akeno can use a powerful spell to take them out in one hit and I launch a sneak attack on Riser himself. I see, Jin said, his face unreadable. He looked over at Kiba, who had finished the file and passed it to Konako. What do you think, Kiba? Their queen will be tough, but I believe I can handle the others in 1v1, Kiba said confidently. Konako gave a silent, firm nod as she passed the document to Issei and Asia. Jin took a final sip of his soda, placed the can down with a definitive click, and addressed the room. Let me tell you something. With that plan, you're going to get slaughtered. You bastard! Issei shot to his feet. How can you say that to the president plan? Issei, calm down, Rias said, holding up a hand, though her eyes were fixed on Jin. He must have a reason for saying that. First, Jin began, his voice cold and analytical, why are you having your heavy hitters waste stamina finishing off pawns? If Kiba and Akeno defeat their opponents, they should immediately move to the next target while Issei and Konako handle the pawns. He looked at Rias. I know you're concerned they might not be able to finish their opponent, but this is a battle, not a training exercise. Issei and Konako looked at Rias with wide, puppy dog eyes, touched by her concern. See? Issei shouted at Jin. You're just trying to hurt the president's feelings. She's thinking about us. Concern doesn't win rating games, Jin retorted flatly. You, he said, pointing a finger at Issei, are going to be the reason she loses. I would not. Issei roared. Oh really? What's to stop Riser from capturing you and using you as leverage to make Rias forfeit? You're the weakest link and the most emotional. You're a liability. You bastard, you better shut your mouth. Or what? Jin asked, his voice dangerously quiet. What could you possibly do? I'll beat you up. Issei declared, his fists clenched. Both of you, stop it. Rias commanded, seeing things escalate. Issei immediately quieted, his attention snapping to her. Jin, however, gave Rias a look, subtly motioning for her to let it play out. Why stop us? Let's find out right now. How is he going to help you? Yes, President. Issei pleaded. Allow me to beat this bastard up. Rias caught Jin's signal and, after a moment's hesitation, made a decision. Fine. Jin stood up, a predatory grin on his face. Lead the way to the training grounds, Pipsqueak. The training grounds behind the old schoolhouse were silent save for the rustling of leaves. Rias's peerage formed a loose circle, the air thick with tension. Asia stood nervously to one side, hands clasped in prayer. Akeno watched with a curious, unreadable smile. Konako's expression was as stoic as ever, but her fists were clenched. In the center, Issei Hyudo bounced on the balls of his feet, his face a mask of furious determination. Across from him, Jin Kazuma stood perfectly still, his hands in the pockets of his biker jacket, looking almost bored. Ready to get your ass kicked? Issei snarled. Jin just smirked. Whenever you are. That was all the prompting Issei needed. He roared and charged, throwing a wild, telegraphed right hook. Jin didn't even seem to move much, a simple sidestep was all it took. Issei's punch met empty air, and his momentum sent him stumbling forward. Is that it? Jin taunted, not even bothering to take his hands out of his pockets. You broadcast every move you make. A child could dodge that. Enraged, Issei spun around, his boosted gear flaring to life on his arm. Boost. A wave of power surged through him. He lunged again, this time throwing a flurry of punches. They were faster, stronger, but just as clumsy. Jin moved like a phantom, weaving and ducking under the assault with an almost insulting lack of effort. He'd occasionally block a punch with his forearm, the impact echoing with a dull thud, but he never gave ground. Come on, Jin goaded, easily sidestepping a kick. You're fighting with your anger, not your head. It's making you sloppy. Issei grit his teeth, trying to think of something unconventional. He feinted high, then dropped low for a sweep kick. For a split second, he thought he had him, but Jin simply hopped over the kick, brought his foot down on Issei's extended leg, and pinned it to the ground. Before Issei could react, Jin delivered a sharp, punishing kick to his ribs. Issei gasped, the air forced from his lungs. He rolled away, clutching his side. Boost. The gauntlet glowed brighter, power crackling around him. He was reaching his limit, he could feel it, but he didn't care. He staggered to his feet. Still want more? Jin asked, his voice losing its mocking tone and taking on a colder edge. Issei charged one last time, pouring every ounce of his boosted power into a final, desperate punch. This time, Jin didn't dodge. He met the attack head-on, catching Issei's fist in his open palm. The shockwave kicked up dust around them, but Jin didn't even slide back an inch. Issei stared in disbelief, his ultimate attack stopped so casually. He saw the strain begin to fracture the ground beneath Jin's feet, but the man himself was an immovable wall. Seeing Issei ready to try and boost again, knowing the boy's body couldn't take much more, Jin decided the lesson was over. He tightened his grip on Issei's fist, pulled him off balance, and delivered a single, precise chop to the back of his neck. Issei's eyes rolled back, and he crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Silence fell. Asia rushed to Issei's side, her hands glowing with healing magic. That was unnecessary, a cold voice said. Kiba Ueto stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. His handsome face was a mask of chivalrous fury. He is our comrade. To beat him so brutally serves no purpose. Take him and get him healed, Jin said to Rias, completely ignoring Kiba. Rias nodded, and with Asia's help, they moved Issei to the clubhouse porch. Kiba drew his sword, its silver blade gleaming in the afternoon light. I cannot stand by and watch you treat my friends and my king with such disrespect. Your methods are cruel and dishonorable. I, Kiba Ueto, a knight of Rias Gremory, will defeat you and teach you some humility. Jin finally turned his full attention to him, a mocking smirk returning. Are you going to try and defeat me by waving your tongue or your sword? Kiba's eyes narrowed. His plan was simple, use his demonic speed to overwhelm Jin, testing his defenses and finding a rhythm before striking the final blow. He vanished in a blur, reappearing at Jin's side, his sword swinging in a clean, vicious arc aimed at Jin's shoulder. He expected Jin to dodge, to block, to do something. He did nothing. Jin simply stood there and let the sword hit him. But instead of the sound of tearing flesh, there was a loud, metallic clang. Kiba stared in shock as his blade bounced off Jin's skin as if it had struck solid steel. For a split second, he could see the muscles on Jin's shoulder ripple and harden, taking on a faint, metallic sheen. That split second was all Jin needed. With Kiba's stance broken from the rebound, Jin lunged forward, tackling him with the force of a freight train. Kiba's speed and grace were rendered useless as he was slammed to the ground, the air driven from his lungs. Jin pinned him down with a knee on his chest and drew back a fist. Jin, stop! Rias screamed. Jin's fist halted an inch from Kiba's face. He held the position for a moment before slowly standing up, leaving the dazed and defeated knight on the grass. Jin turned his gaze toward the porch, his eyes landing on the last remaining combatant of the peerage. So, he said, his voice casual. You want to join in too, kitty cat? Konako tensed, ready to spring forward, but Rias stepped between them, her body trembling with rage. Her crimson hair seemed to crackle with an energy of its own. That's enough, she yelled, her voice shaking. You've gone too far. Look at them. If this is how you operate, then I don't need your help. The deal is off. The threat hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Issei was unconscious and being treated. Kiba was still lying on the ground, struggling to sit up. Jin hadn't so much as a scratch on him. Seeing the dead serious fury in Rias's eyes, Jin's entire demeanor shifted. The mocking grin vanished, replaced by a calm, neutral expression. Relax, he said simply. It was a test. Rias stared at him, her anger momentarily short-circuited by confusion. She looked from the unconscious form of her pawn to the beaten form of her knight and her tensed rook, then back to the man who had so effortlessly and brutally dismantled them. What in the world was wrong with him? The atmosphere on the clubhouse porch was thick with a tense, heavy silence. Jin Kazuma sat relaxed in a chair, casually sipping a fresh soda Akeno had provided. In stark contrast, the rest of the group was a portrait of defeat and anxiety. Asia gently tended to the still groggy Issei, while Konako sat quietly beside Kiba. Akeno stood protectively behind Rias, whose posture was rigid with unspoken questions. It was Rias who finally broke the silence. What did you mean? That it was a test. Jin took a slow drink before answering, his calm demeanor making the others even more tense. Hey, you all can relax. I'm going to explain. He placed his soda can on a small table beside him. So, where to begin? From the start, Rias said, her voice tight. All right, then. Jin leaned forward, his expression becoming serious. Let's start at the beginning. From the moment we first spoke yesterday, I could see you weren't taking this seriously enough. Issei, struggling to sit up, pointed an accusing finger. You bastard! There you go, insulting the president again. Issei, calm down, Rias said, her voice firm but weary. Let him finish. Let's hear what he has to say. Hearing the command in her tone, Issei lost his momentum and slumped back, allowing Asia to place a comforting hand on his shoulder. Jin held up one finger. First mistake, you had almost zero information on your opponent. But you fight without information all the time and you win. Kiba countered, defending his king. I don't have the Gremory family and a Satan for a brother providing me with intelligence channels, Jin shot back. You do. Not using them is just stupid. Going into a fight with information and going in blind are two entirely different ballgames. He paused, his gaze sweeping over them. And for the record, I've gotten lucky in many of my encounters. Don't use me as your example. The group fell silent, nodding at the undeniable logic in his words. Jin raised a second finger. Second mistake, you lack coordination. Rias, you had the file. You should have shared it with your peerage the second you got it. I told you, I didn't have time. Rias said defensively. I had just finished reviewing it myself when you arrived. I was going to lend it to them. Jin shook his head slowly. No, your entire approach is wrong. Tell me, what do you consider your peerage to be? Family, Rias answered without hesitation. At her word, a warmth spread through her peerage. Issei's glare softened into fierce loyalty, Kiba offered a small, pained smile, and Konako's ears twitched slightly. Exactly, Jin said, zeroing in on her. And you're acting like the head of the family. You feel the need to see everything first, to vet it, and then pass it down to protect them. Rias nodded, acknowledging the truth in his assessment. In a family, that's fine, Jin continued. But you are not acting right. You should have sent them the file the moment you received it. You should have been discussing it amongst yourselves before I even arrived. Rias still looked hesitant. When did you get the file? Jin pressed. This morning, when I woke up, she admitted. I thought we could all discuss it here. I estimated you would arrive this afternoon, but you came much earlier. Fair enough, Jin conceded. But you still should have sent it out immediately. I know you don't want to interrupt their mornings, but you all need to develop a sense of urgency. Your enemy isn't going to wait for you to be ready. He looked around the group. Tell me, he addressed them directly. If Rias had sent you that file first thing in the morning, would you have read it? Of course I would have. Issei said immediately. Me too, Kiba added. Konako gave a single, firm nod. Asia hummed in agreement. Rias looked down, a faint blush of shame on her cheeks. You say they're your family, Jin said, his voice softening slightly. Then you need to demand things from them when you're in need. Trust them to handle the burden. I guarantee none of them will say no. He's right, President, Issei said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't like the guy, but he's right. I'll always be there for you. Please, depend on us more, Rias, Kiba urged. For the first time, Konako spoke, her voice a quiet murmur. I'll be there. I will also support you, Rias-san. Asia added. Even Akeno chimed in, her teasing tone replaced with genuine warmth. I am always here for you, my dear. Rias kept her head down for a moment, composing herself, before looking up with renewed determination. Thank you, everyone. I promise, I will. Good. Now's not the time to get emotional, Jin said, cutting through the moment. Listen up, because here's mistake number 3, your individual flaws. His gaze locked onto Issei. I intentionally baited you, and you walked right into my trap. Your anger led to your defeat, which in turn forced Kiba to step up emotionally. But I'll give you this, your heart's in the right place. Just learn to be wary of traps. Issei, stunned by the genuine advice, could only manage a quiet, okay. Jin turned to Kiba. You did the right thing by stepping up for your comrade, but you let yourself get too heated. You're a knight. You're supposed to be cool-headed. There's already a hothead on this team, they don't need another one. I couldn't stand by while you disrespected him, Kiba argued. And what good is a king who loses her knight because he couldn't control his temper? Jin countered. You are her speed, her blade. Think about your role. Next, he turned to Konako. Your comrades, Issei and Kiba, were both beaten down. What were you waiting for? Konako looked away, unsure of what to say. Jin, she was being cautious, isn't that a good thing? Rias interjected, trying to defend her. No, she was hesitating, Jin corrected her flatly. He looked directly at Konako. How long are you going to hide behind Rias? You need to learn to take charge yourself sometimes. I won't say more, but you need to think about it. Asia sat up straight, as if expecting to be next. Jin glanced at her. I have nothing for you. Finally, he looked at Rias. And that brings me to you. Coddling them, being their protective shield. It's a good quality in a friend, but as a king, you're getting in their way. You're so afraid they'll get hurt, but that way you're stunting their growth. He stood up, his lesson delivered. I want all of you to think about what I've said. Reflect on your weaknesses. Because Riser Phoenix won't be testing you, he'll be trying to break you. Be ready. So I am asking you guys, where do you think I need to improve? I am not talking about story but my writing style. What are things you find lacking in a chapter, again not in story? The heavy atmosphere on the clubhouse porch finally began to lift as Jin's words settled over the group. It was Jin who broke the thoughtful silence, already moving on to the next problem. Alright, Rias. What's the plan moving forward? He asked. Rias, pulling herself back into her role as king, straightened up. There are 10 days until the raiding game. I was planning to arrange a training camp for everyone. Okay. What's the focus? Jin pressed immediately. What fundamentals are you prioritizing? With the limited time, I thought we should focus on strengthening our core abilities and teamwork. She began. Good, I also have some ideas about the training, Jin interjected, though not unkindly. Specific regimens for each of you. Tell me, Rias said, her curiosity piqued. I'd like to hear them. I will, Jin said, before turning his attention to the rest of the peerage. Before that, you all should attend to any personal matters you have. Issei, you'll need to let your parents know you're going on a trip for a little over a week. Everyone else should get packed and get ready. He then looked back to Rias. The place you have in mind for the training camp is ready to go, yes. It's a family villa near a lake, she confirmed. It's always empty at this time of year. We can go whenever we're ready. Rias said with a decisive nod. Here's the plan, Jin and I will finalize the details. The rest of you, go home, pack. Sounds good, President, Issei said. We'll see you tonight. Issei-san, what about school? Asia asked worriedly. I will inform President Sana of our extended absence, Kiba offered. Thank you, Kiba. I'd appreciate that, Rias said with a grateful smile. Konako simply gave a small nod and got up, presumably to prepare in her own quiet way. Okay, everyone, Rias called out as they began to disperse. Let's meet here this evening. The Gremory Villa. A brilliant crimson magic circle flared to life on the manicured lawn in front of a sprawling, elegant mansion. From its light emerged Rias, her peerage, and Jin, the scent of ozone giving way to the fresh, clean air of the countryside. A line of maids stood waiting to greet them, with the impeccably poised Grafia at their head. Wow! Asia breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the beautiful, 3-story villa and the shimmering lake behind it. It's magnificent. It's huge. Issei added, craning his neck to see the top. Welcome, everyone, to my family's vacation home, Rias announced with a proud smile. We'll be training here for the upcoming days. Alright, let's go explore. Issei cheered. Wait, Jin's voice cut through the excitement. Everyone's attention snapped to him. First, let me outline the strategy and your individual roles. I want everyone on the same page from the very beginning. What's the hurry, man? Issei complained. We just got here. You can tell us later. Issei's right, Jin, Rias said gently. Let's let everyone get familiar with the location and settle in. We can start fresh tomorrow morning. Jin's jaw tightened for a second, his impatience clear, but he gave a curt nod. Fine. If that's what you think is the best approach. Yes. Come on, Asia, let's check out that lake. Issei said, grabbing her hand and pulling her along. Kiba and Konako also began to drift off, leaving Jin, Rias, and Akeno with the maids. Jin turned to Graphia. Graphia-san, I have a list of requirement. Can you arrange for them? Of course, Jin-sama, she replied with a polite bow. Everything will be arranged. He handed her a folded list. When can I expect them? By tomorrow morning at the latest, Jin-sama, Graphia assured him. Now, please, come inside. We have prepared refreshments in your rooms. Thank you, Graphia-san, Jin said. If someone could show me to my room. Before one of the maids could move, Akeno stepped forward and looped her arm through Jin's. I'll show you, she purred. Jin moved with her and speak show what? Exactly, and let her lead him into the mansion. Graphia watched them go before turning to Rias. You have found a dependable ally, Rias-sama. Yes, Rias agreed, her eyes following Jin. He thinks, differently. He always seems to be moving forward, as if he's afraid to stop. That is a tendency that sometimes develops in those who lived their lives on the edge, Graphia observed calmly. Is that a good thing, Graphia? It can be. I have observed that people with that drive often progress much faster than those around them. Graphia's expression became more serious. However, it can also lead them to become self-destructive. By constantly being on edge, they begin to neglect their physical, mental health and become self-sabotaging. Eventually, they crash and burn. So, what do you think of him? Rias asked, her voice filled with concern. Earlier, he seemed to be heading down that path. But now, it appears he has found some semblance of balance, Graphia concluded. Now, if you will excuse me, Rias-sama, I must arrange for these items. Yes, please do, Rias said. I think they will massively help us in our training. Another of his ideas, I presume. Yes. I will take my leave, then. The maids will assist you with anything you need. With a final bow, Graphia vanished in a flash of silver light just as Issei came running back. President, this place is incredible. Let me show you the lake, he said, his earlier excitement returning full force. Rias smiled, letting her worries fade for the moment, and followed him toward the water. Living room. The next morning, after breakfast, the group assembled in a large living area that had been converted into a makeshift war room. A large whiteboard stood at the front, and maids stood silently by the walls. Rias and Jin stood at the front. All right, everyone, Rias began. Jin has developed the overall strategy for the game and our individual training plans. I want you all to listen carefully. She then took a seat with the others, ceding the floor to him. Jin moved to the front of the room, a file in his hand. His demeanor was sharp, focused, and radiated an aura of command. He took a photo of Riser Phoenix from the file and slapped it onto the center of the board. This is our target, he said, his voice ringing with authority. Without defeating him, everything else we do is meaningless. I'll definitely beat his ass. Issei declared. Konako nodded in agreement, and even Asia curled her hands into tiny, determined fists. Jin then brought out more photos Riser's peerage members and began pinning them around the central target. Saying it is easy. But before we get to him, we have to go through them. I want you to memorize these faces. These photos will stay here for the duration of our training. He then took out photos of each of them and placed them on the other side of the board. Now, let's talk about your roles. He pointed to Kiba's photo. We're splitting into two primary assault teams. Team 1 will be Kiba and Issei. He then pointed to his own photo and Konako's. Team 2 will be me and Konako. Konako's body tensed slightly at the pairing. Akeno will act as our primary ranged support and artillery unit, he continued. Asia is our dedicated healer, the most important defensive piece on the board. And Rias. Rias is our ace. The final sword we use to strike down the king. Everyone nodded, understanding the structure. Now, Jin said, turning back to the board. Let me tell you what you'll be focusing on for the next 10 days. Graphia a potential entry set. Yes. No. Yo, I have seen a trend of Rias hate being force. I don't necessarily like Rias, but remember guy, we all like it at first before we read FF and start hating her for her flaws. The assignments. Jin stood before the whiteboard, his expression that of a. He looked directly at Rias. Rias, your role is to be our finisher. That means I want you to focus on the raw, destructive power of your lineage and learn to use it with absolute efficiency, knowing when to hold back and when to unleash everything. He then turned his gaze to the silver-haired maid. Graphia-san, I'm entrusting you with Rias's training. You are the only one I trust to keep her focused. Hey! Rias protested. I can be focused when I want to be. Grafia, Akeno, and even Kiba met her outburst with a unified, deadpan stare that clearly said, no, you can't. Ignoring the exchange, Jin turned to Akeno. You are our sole long-range support unit. That's going to put immense pressure on you. I want you to focus entirely on your magic regeneration and stamina. Akeno brought a finger to her lips, her voice a sultry, teasing whisper. Don't you worry, Jin-san. I can handle a heavy load. Jin gave her a look that simply screamed really. Before moving on. Kiba. There is a high probability that their knight will target you specifically. Your training will be exclusively focused on your one-on-one dueling abilities. Kiba gave a sharp, determined nod. Issei, Jin continued, you will work on pure physical conditioning to strengthen your body, and on mastering the power of your sacred gear. You got it, man. Issei grinned, pumping a fist. I'll be as strong as you in the blink of an eye. Jin acknowledged him with a slight nod. As his gaze shifted, Asia tensed, knowing her turn was next. Asia, I don't have a combat regimen for you, Jin said, his voice softening slightly. I know you dislike violence, so there's little I can assign. Please, just continue to do what you do best, keep us healed while we practice. A flicker of dejection crossed her face, but she quickly replaced it with a determined smile. I will heal everyone, Jin-san. Konako felt a pang of confusion, thinking he had skipped over her. Konako, Jin said, his voice drawing her full attention. You will be training directly with me. The two of us need to work on our teamwork. Konako's expression remained stoic, but a flicker of apprehension showed in her eyes. She gave a reluctant nod. Training with me will be exceptionally difficult, Jin warned, his gaze intense. I am only asking you to follow me if you are absolutely sure you want to take that extra step. She struggled internally with the decision. It was Rias's voice that gave her clarity. Konako, whatever you decide, I will accept it. Konako looked at her king, her eyes filled with a storm of emotion. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening like steel. I will train. Good, Jin said with a final nod. Let's get started. With their orders given, the group broke apart, each member heading off to begin their new regimen. The hot springs. After a long and punishing first day of training, the group was now soaking in the mansion's luxurious open-air hot spring, letting the hot water wash away their fatigue. On the boys' side of the tall bamboo partition, Jin, Issei, and Kiba relaxed in the steaming water. Kiba, who had been sitting in quiet contemplation, finally spoke. So, Jin, do you really think we can win against Riser? Issei, who had been fidgeting, immediately focused on the topic. Jin lay back against a rock, his eyes closed. Frankly? As we are now, it would be a close call, but ultimately, we would lose. The flicker of hope in Kiba's and Issei's eyes rose and then immediately crashed. But what's the problem? Kiba pressed. We're training hard, and with your tactics, we should have a chance. Yeah, believe in us, man. Issei added. By the end of this, we will be way stronger. Jin opened his eyes and looked at them. I believe we will be, Issei. My assessment already considers that. His peerage, for the most part, isn't the core problem. He held up a hand. There are only 4 things that are truly dangerous in this match. Riser himself, his sister, Ravel, his queen, and the 4th is a possibility we can't control. The file said Riser's sister isn't a combatant, Kiba reasoned, and Akeno-senpai should be able to defeat his queen. In a fair one-on-one, yes, Jin agreed. But you have to remember they can use 2 phoenix tears during the match. That gives their queen a massive advantage. What's a phoenix tear? Issei asked. It's a magical potion that can only be produced by the Phoenix clan, Kiba explained. It can instantly heal any injury, restoring you to 100% health. What? That's cheating! Issei yelled. Those bastards! You have a sacred gear capable of killing a god that doubles your power every 10 seconds, Jin retorted dryly. Issei rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, if you put it like that. His sister, Ravel, may not fight, but she can provide support from the back lines, Jin continued. We have to get her out of the game immediately. And we have to assume she has the same healing ability as her brother. Wait, you said 4 things, Issei pointed out. That's only 3. The 4th, Jin said, his voice grim, is the possibility that they don't underestimate us. What do you mean? Issei asked, confused. Isn't them underestimating us a good thing? Not necessarily, Jin explained. The fact is, we're not sure if Rias can defeat Riser in a direct fight. So, hypothetically, if Riser decides to take us seriously and charges us from the start with his entire peerage, we'd be in trouble. They outnumber us. They could tie up our heavy hitters, Rias and Akeno, leaving the rest of us to deal with their pawns, rooks, and knights. He sighed, a plume of steam rising with his breath. I'm confident we could take care of his peerage, but by then, Akeno would likely be eliminated and the rest of us would be spent. We'd have no way to deal with Riser. If it weren't for his immortality, I'd devise a plan to tire him out, because in a battle of pure endurance, I would win. But against him, that's not an option. You really don't have much faith in Rias, do you? Kiba asked quietly. I'm just considering every possibility, Jin replied. Issei, meanwhile, had sidled up to the bamboo wall. Well, guys, wanna take a peek? On the other side, the girls were also relaxing. Konako, are you alright? Rias asked, her voice laced with concern. Did Jin push you too much today? Konako looked at Rias, her expression serious. He works hard, she said simply. He trains all day. Rias and Akeno exchanged a surprised look. They had expected a simple nod. For the stoic Konako to describe the training as hard meant it must have been utterly brutal. If you need any help, don't ever hesitate to ask me, Rias said softly. Konako nodded. Era. Looks like our little kitten has her work cut out for her, Akeno hummed. Jin really brought a solid structure to our plan, Rias admitted, a thoughtful look on her face. Compared to him, I feel like I've been lacking as a leader. Don't say that about yourself, Rias-san. Asia said, trying to cheer her up. But it's true, Rias continued. I thought of this training camp mainly for you and Issei. He found a way for all of us to grow stronger in the most effective way possible. He certainly takes charge splendidly, Akeno said with a sly smile. I do wish he'd show such interest in other things as well. Akeno, have you started to fancy him? Rias teased. Akeno just smiled mysteriously. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a loud thwack from the partition wall, followed by a muffled yelp from the other side. Era, Akeno giggled, covering her mouth. It seems Issei really did try to take a peek. Rias sighed, though a small smile played on her lips. I guess we were right about that. Asia hid her face with embarrass. Akeno and Rias watch her start giggling. Alright, that's enough for today, Jin announced, closing the notebook where he'd been tracking their progress. We're done with group training for now. We've analyzed each of Riser's peerage members and drilled counters for their strengths and weaknesses. From tomorrow onwards, we focus on our individual regimens. A collective sigh of relief went through the room. The peerage, exhausted from the non-stop training of the past 5 days, began to disperse, each member looking forward to a brief respite. Jin also turned to leave, his own day of training far from over. Jin, Rias called out. He stopped and looked back at her. Yes, Rias. She rose from her chair, her expression thoughtful. I just wanted to talk. Would you accompany me for a walk? Jin considered it for a moment before giving a simple nod. Sure. He fell into step beside her, and soon they were walking along a stone path that wound through the estate's sprawling gardens, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Konako has been falling straight asleep the moment her head hits the pillow, Rias began, breaking the comfortable silence. At first, she was hesitant, Jin replied, his gaze fixed ahead. But I think she's starting to enjoy pushing her limits. It seems she had just become a bit lethargic from a lack of strenuous activity. She's strong. Rias stopped walking and turned to face him, her expression serious. I see. Jin. I want to ask you something. Why do you want to become so strong? Jin met her gaze, his own unreadable. Why the sudden question, Rias? I've been watching you, she explained. You train like a maniac, pushing yourself to your absolute physical and mental limits every single day. Then, when we're all done, you go and train in magic late into the night. You must have a goal. There must be something you're chasing. A shadow passed over Jin's features. To survive, Rias. 4 months, there were constant attempts on my life. I just want to survive. And to survive, I have to be strong. To be strong, I have to push myself like this. But what about now, she pressed. Those who wanted you dead are gone. There will always be someone else who comes after me. I know it, he said, his voice hard as flint. I can't always be on the receiving end. You're right, there will always be more enemies, she conceded. But I have a doubt. If surviving is your only goal, you could have been safe just by joining my peerage. With the backing of a major faction, you'd be far more secure. I am the heiress to the Gremory house, and my brother is Surtsk's Lucifer. Wouldn't you be safest with me? If you're trying to get me to join your peerage again, you already know the answer. I know you would say no, she cut him off. You're a human with incredible potential. People will always be after you, even if you just stay in Kuah town. So I want to know why you, a person who just wants to survive, aren't taking the best and most logical route available. Is remaining human that important to you? You're right, Jin admitted, his tone softening slightly. If I joined you, I'd be in a safe environment. I'd have access to nearly unlimited resources, powerful backing, people to guide me, but I don't want to grow in a gilded cage. Truthfully, at first, I just wanted to survive and be free. But now I've started to enjoy the feeling of getting stronger. I want to see how far I can go. I want to know the heights I can reach by myself. He paused, his gaze becoming more perceptive as he studied her. But this isn't what you really wanted to ask, is it? Tell me, Rias. What do you really want to know? Rias looked away, her composure finally cracking. I wanted to know what makes someone so passionate, so driven. I look at myself, and I find that I'm lacking in so many ways. I'm not brilliant like Sana, or charismatic like Sareorg. I'm not even driven like you or Issei. Her head dipped, her voice trembling slightly. Now, I find myself at a dead end. I don't see any road leading forward, and I feel stuck. So when I see you, I wanted to ask why you struggle so hard. I've been thinking that maybe it was okay to just keep being myself. I just want to enjoy my life. I don't want to become strong like my brother, or change devil society like Sana and Sareorg. And I've never been in danger like you, where I was forced to get stronger. So I feel lost. Jin listened patiently until she was finished. Rias, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. You want to grow and change, but you don't know what to do or which direction to go. That's perfectly fine. You're overthinking things. You're a devil. Find a desire, and follow it. He took a step closer. Truth be told, you've already taken the first step. If you truly wanted to remain the same, you never would have approached me. No, that was just because I don't want to be with Riser, she mumbled. Exactly, Jin affirmed. That is your desire. For now, just follow that. I think by the end of it, you'll find your answer. Think about it. If you hadn't approached me, you would have lost the rating game, but you would have been fine. Your brother never would have let that marriage go through. Rias looked up, truly surprised. Really? Yes, he stated with certainty. By involving me, you escalated a private dispute between two families into a public spectacle. You've actually restricted your brother's ability to intervene behind the scenes even more. Rias stared at him, dumbfounded. I don't know what to say. I never even considered that angle. What did you consider, then? I just felt trapped, she confessed. Then I remembered the minor favors owed to me by the council, and I remembered you. I just thought that with you, I could win. Maybe I shouldn't have involved you. Jin started walking again, his hands in his pockets. Too late for that now. A small, genuine smile touched Rias's lips as she fell into step beside him. Yes, you're right. A bit of her usual teasing tone returned to her voice. Looks like I'm stuck with you for now. The air in the Gremory Villa's main hall crackled with nervous energy. Rias stood in the center of her peerage, her gaze sweeping over each of their determined faces. We have done everything we could for the past 10 days, she said, her voice clear and strong. We have all made progress by giving our absolute all. I have seen your dedication and your determination, and no matter what happens today, whether we win or lose, I am proud of all of you. Now, let's go and fight. Grafia stepped up from the sideline, a crimson Gremory magic circle flaring to life at her feet. It expanded, engulfing them in warm light before the world dissolved and reformed around them. They were standing on the familiar grounds of Kua Academy, yet the silence was eerie. There were no students, no ambient city noise, only the rustle of leaves in a sterile, perfect replica. Grafia's disembodied voice echoed through air. The arena has been selected as a replica of Kua Academy, as per Lord Riser's suggestion. Both parties have agreed. The match will commence in 15 minutes. All right, everyone, Rias said, her eyes flashing with resolve. We all know our roles and the strategy. Let's do this. Yes, the peerage roared in unison. Like a well-oiled machine, they scattered. Akeno took to the skies, her silhouette a dark shadow against the purple sky as she began laying magical traps around their base at the Occult Research Club building. Rias and Asia remained at the command post. The two assault teams, Kiba and Issei, and Jin and Konako, moved out after 15 minutes. Their destination, the gymnasium. There will be people waiting for us, that's a guarantee, Jin said quietly to Konako as they sprinted across the campus. Are you ready? Konako met his gaze, her small frame radiating immense power. She gave a single, firm nod. They burst through the gym doors to find 4 of Riser's peerage members waiting for them. 3 pawns, the twins Isle and Nell and Myra, and the rook, a woman named Swollen. Well, look what we have here, Myra sneered. They really thought they could capture the gym. And that must be the human we were warned about. I will defeat them with my kung fu, Swollen declared, her eyes locking onto Jin. I hope you are ready to fight me, I want a good fight and bring honor to my master. Jin and Konako exchanged a look. In the next instant, they charged. Konako shot toward the 3 pawns while Jin made a beeline for the rook, a ripple of density flowing over his body as he activated his unbreakable form. Swollen met his charge with fluid grace, her style a dance of evasive circles and open palm strikes. She lashed out with a high kick, which Jin caught on his forearm with a solid thud. He pressed forward, closing the distance and throwing a powerful, straight right cross. Swollen twisted away, but his sheer aggression forced her back. I will break your pathetic armor and defeat you, she grunted, striking his hardened chest with a flurry of palm heel strikes that felt like hitting a stone wall. No, you won't, Jin stated flatly. It's beyond you. He channeled some toki into his legs, exploding forward with a burst of speed that caught her by surprise. He was inside her guard, too close for her to effectively counter. A brutal jab snapped her head back, followed by a vicious hook. He had her trapped, his fists a relentless barrage against her face and head until, with a final, devastating uppercut, she dissolved into particles of golden light. Lord Riser's rook, Swollen, has retired. Jin looked up to see Konako finishing her own battle. The third pawn, screaming in rage over her twin's elimination, charged Konako with a magic chainsaw. Konako met the charge, her tiny fist swinging with all her might. The punch landed with a sickening crunch, and the girl was blown backward into the wall before she, too, disappeared. Lord Riser's 4 pawns and 1 rook have been eliminated. Looks like you're done too, Konako, Jin said, letting his hardening fade. Let's move out. She nodded and followed. They were sprinting toward their next objective when a massive sphere of explosive magic descended from the sky, detonating directly on top of Jin. Aagh! Jin screamed as he was engulfed in the blast. Jin-san! Konako cried, rushing to his side. High above, Riser's queen, Yubelina, hovered with a contemptuous smirk. So that was the human Rias had gone for help. Nothing special at all. Before she could fire on Konako, a bolt of purple lightning streaked past her head. Akeno. I'll deal with you another time, Yubelina said coolly, vanishing in a burst of speed. Akeno landed gracefully. You can stop acting now, she said with a sly smile. Jin sat up, brushing dust from his jacket without a scratch on him, already healed. Is she really gone? Era. You really predicted she would come for you here. What a scary man you are, Akeno purred. Jin pressed a finger to his earpiece. Plan A is on. Miles away, Kiba and Issei stood over the fading light of 3 of Riser's pawns. Plan A is on, Jin's voice came through their comms. Lord Riser's another 3 pawns have retired. Back at the Occult Research Club, Rias shot to her feet, a fierce, triumphant grin on her face. That's all but 2 of his pawns gone. She turned to her bishop. Asia. Let's go. Part 2, the commentary booth. Deep within a pocket dimension, Sana Citri sat in a high-tech control room, her eyes scanning a dozen monitors that displayed every angle of the battlefield. As the announcer for this match, she leaned into her microphone, her voice cool and analytical. In a stunning opening salvo, Rias Gramarie's team has completely dismantled Lord Riser's numbers advantage, she broadcasted. And in a fascinating turn of events, the human participant, Jin Kazuma, successfully baited and deceived Lord Riser's powerful queen, Yubelina. She paused for effect. For those new to the strategic nuances of rating games, you might ask what advantage this deception provides, since the announcer confirms a player's status. The brilliance lies in perception. Lord Riser's team will now view Jin Kazuma as a weakling who was nearly eliminated by a single blow, forcing Rias's team to expend precious healing resources on him. He has branded himself as a non-threat, a perception he will surely exploit later. Sana's eyes followed another monitor. And there it is. With most of Riser's pawns eliminated, Rias Gramarie has chosen to abandon her fortified position. A wise move, holding a defensive base is now a waste of resources. The board has been leveled. The question going forward is simple, will Lord Riser's superior firepower prevail, or will the Gramarie team's brilliant strategy keep carrying the day? Sana switched off the microphone, her professional mask giving way to a more thoughtful expression. Tsubaki, standing beside her, spoke in a low voice. With this, they have brought themselves to equal ground and completely blindsided Riser's team. Rias-sama has planned this brilliantly. Sana shook her head slightly, her gaze still fixed on the screens. The overall strategy, yes. Rias is a good commander. But this specific gambit, fooling a veteran queen like Yubelina with such a convincing performance, that level of cunning is not Rias's signature. Tsubaki's eyes widened in understanding. So, it must have been him. Jin Kazuma. Most likely, Sana confirmed, her fingers tapping on the console as she zoomed in on the monitor showing Jin running through the forest. He is crafty. From our observations, he appeared to be a simple frontline brawler. We never anticipated he was a strategist. Her eyes narrowed, a look of intense concentration on her face. We need to completely re-evaluate him. Now, how is he going to use the persona he just created? Kiba and Issei burst from the tree line onto the pristine tennis courts, a key strategic location that overlooked the path to the student council building. They didn't get far. A figure landed before them with a heavy thud, clad in the crimson and gold armor of the Phoenix clan. Her hand rested on the hilt of a great sword. I am Carlamine, Knight of Riser Phoenix, she declared, her voice ringing with arrogant confidence. Be ready to face me, Knight of Gremory. I will defeat you and prove my superiority. Kiba's usual calm, almost playful battle demeanor was gone. In its place was the cold focused Jin had beaten into him. He had no time to feel out his opponent. You really like the sound of your own voice, Kiba replied coolly. Just as he spoke, more figures emerged, closing the trap. From the shadows of the bleachers came the towering Rook, Isabella. From behind the umpire chairs, the nimble, fox-like twin pawns, Ni and Li, appeared with predatory grins. Remembering Jin's lesson, Kiba decided to seize the initiative. He recalled what he'd read about Carlamine, quick on her feet, skilled with her great sword, and empowered with the fire and wind affinities of her master. Then let's cool you off, Kiba said. Frost exploded from his outstretched hand, crackling as it coalesced into a beautiful, yet lethal, blade of shimmering ice. The air around it grew cold. An ice sword? How? Carlamine, her own blade igniting with swirling flames. It's my sacred gear, Kiba stated. Sword birth. Now, let's fight. He vanished. The clash of their blades was a violent hiss of fire meeting ice, steam erupting from the point of impact. They were a blur of motion, Carlamine's powerful, fiery swings meeting Kiba's fast and precise ice-cold strikes. For every blow she landed, he parried too. They were perfectly matched, locked in a deadly stalemate. Issei was in hell, and hell was a fist. Isabella's fist. It crashed into his ribs like a wrecking ball, the impact buckling his guard and driving the air from his lungs in a pained gasp. The blow sent him staggering sideways, right into a spinning hook kick from Ni that cracked against his jaw and sent a starburst of white through his vision. His senses swam. Before he could even think to recover, Li swept his legs out from under him. He hit the fractured cord hard, the impact rattling his teeth. Isabella was on him in an instant, a heavy, armored boot stomping down on his chest, pinning him to the ground. She loomed over him, a mountain of crimson and gold, flanked by the nimble, fox-like twins. He was being systematically dismantled. But he didn't give up. Boost. 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 No. Issei spat, a spray of blood accompanying the word as Isabella leaned down, preparing a final, crushing punch. Not here. I promised. I promised the president. His mind wasn't forming thoughts, it was a primal roar against the encroaching darkness. Asterisk fight. Fight. I have to fight, asterisk. The boosted gear answered his desperation with a roar of its own. Emerald light erupted from the gauntlet, a violent flare that forced Isabella to shield her eyes and take a half-step back. It was the only opening he would get. He scrambled backward, getting to one knee as she lunged again, her fist glowing with malevolent power, a finishing blow aimed for his heart. There was no thought. Only instinct. A desperate, lightning-fast idea. Forget the massive, slow charge. He seized a fraction of the roaring power coursing through him and transferred it into his arm, twisting it, compressing it into a tiny, unstable sphere of pure destruction at the mouth of his gauntlet. A point-blank dragon shot. Isabella learned the answer in a flash of blinding light and concussive force. The world detonated against her stomach. It wasn't the wide beam of devastation he'd attempted before, but a focused, explosive hammer blow. The impact was immense, a physical shockwave that blew a crater in the ground and sent her flying backward, her armor spider-webbing with cracks before she shattered against the high court fence in a shower of golden light. Ni and Li froze, their coordinated grace shattered by pure shock. They stared at the empty space where their rook had been, their minds unable to process the sudden turn of events. That hesitation was his kill shot. A raw scream tore from Issei's throat, a sound of pain, rage, and triumph. He pivoted on his knee, the gauntlet turning on the stunned twins. He unleashed a barrage, not of massive beams, but of rapid fire, condensed cannonballs of energy. He bombarded them, a relentless storm of explosions that tore up the court. The twins, caught in their moment of disbelief, had no time to dodge. They were swallowed by the blasts and eliminated in a chain of fire and smoke. Asterisk Lord Riser's rook, Isabella, and two pawns, Ni and Li, have retired. Asterisk. Issei fell to his knees, panting, having given everything he had. He looked over to Kiba's fight and his heart sank. Ceres, Riser's other knight, had joined the fray. Kiba was now on the back foot, fighting a desperate 2-on-1 battle, his body littered with a dozen small cuts from the knight's coordinated attacks. Come on, work, damn it! Issei growled, trying to charge another dragon shot, but his energy reserves were too low. We need as many people as we can to fight Riser. Then he remembered another of Jin's lessons. Asterisk if an opponent gets distracted in a fight where they are putting in everything, it can end in an instant. Asterisk he remembered his other, far more infamous, magic. He focused his remaining energy, visualizing the spell. Dress break. A flash of pink light shot across the court, striking both Carlamine and Ceres. In an instant, their clothes shattered into harmless particles of light, leaving them standing naked and frozen in shock on the battlefield. Their hands reflexively flew to cover their chests, their minds completely derailed from the fight. It was the only opening Kiba needed. He was a blur of ice and steel. 2 swift, precise strikes, and both knights dissolved into light. Asterisk Lord Riser's 2 knights, Carlamine and Ceres, have retired. Asterisk. Kiba stood over them, panting, and looked at Issei. Thanks, Issei. Issei, still on his knees, managed a weak thumbs up in response. Their victory was short-lived. Their attention was suddenly drawn to a titanic clash of magic in the sky nearby. Akeno, a tempest of holy lightning, was locked in a furious battle with the queen, Ubelina. And in the distance, a massive pillar of orange fire erupted from the roof of the student council building. Rias. Kiba. Issei yelled, forcing himself to his feet. Rias is in trouble. Let's go. Jin sprinted across the manicured schoolyard, his feet pounding a steady rhythm against the grass. He glanced to his side. Konako was a silent, compact shadow keeping pace with him, her movements silent and powerful. I remember how she was at the start, Jin thought, a flicker of a memory from the first day of training. Asterisk resistant, closed off. She's opened up since my speech, but she still doesn't trust me completely. That's fine. I don't need a place in her heart next to her sister or Rias. I just need to win today. Then I get what I want. Asterisk. Konako watched the unyielding set of his jaw, her own feelings a complicated knot. But his words from their brutal training sessions echoed in her mind. Asterisk in a battlefield, you don't get distracted. If you do, you get back on target immediately. Asterisk she tightened her fists, her focus sharpening, and closed the distance between them. They were halfway to the tennis courts when the world erupted in front of them. Jin had already seen it, a flicker of condensed magic in the sky. He planted his foot, his momentum shifting into a hard slide as the ground where he would have been detonated in a shower of dirt and stone. The concussion wave washed over them, and debris pattered against his hardened skin. They both looked up. Hovering against the artificial sun were 2 figures, Riser's queen, Ubelina, in her revealing battle attire, and beside her, the younger sister, Ravel Phoenix. Did you really think you could sneak around like rats? I told you I would get you. Ubelina called down, her voice dripping with contempt. I am not here to fight, Ravel announced, her tone surprisingly clear and steady. I am merely an observer. She drifted slightly to the side, making her non-involvement plain. Jin's mind processed the variables. Logic dictated he leave the non-combatant alone and focus on the immediate threat. But his instincts, honed by months of life-or-death battles, screamed at him. Asterisk take her down. She is danger. Take her down now. Asterisk he took a deep, steadying breath and forced the instinct down, chaining it with cold pragmatism. One enemy at a time. He locked eyes with Konako. No words were needed. She understood. She dropped into a low, powerful stance, digging her heels into the turf and lacing her fingers together to form a solid platform. She was the cannon. He was the cannonball. Jin sprinted toward her, a human missile. He hit her clasped hands with the full force of his momentum. Konako's arms pistoned down under the immense pressure, her legs sinking an inch into the ground, but in the next heartbeat, she unleashed all of her stored rook power. With a grunt of raw effort, she launched him skyward. He shot up like a projectile, the wind screaming past his ears. Claws of pure, hardened toki extended from his fingertips, ready to tear, to impale, to latch on. You truly are a dumb human, Ubelina sneered. With a powerful flap of her demonic wings, she effortlessly dodged out of his trajectory. Now, fall to your doom. Jin, having passed her and now reaching the apex of his ascent, twisted in midair to face her. A feral grin stretched across his face. Me, he yelled, his voice carrying clearly in the air. I'm just the distraction. A chill of pure dread shot down Ubelina's spine. She whipped her head back toward the ground. Below, standing where they had been just moments before, was Akeno Himejima, the priestess of thunder. A halo of crackling energy surrounded her, and a massive spell circle was already complete. Akeno smiled, a look of sublime cruelty on her face, and unleashed hell. A pillar of holy lightning, thick as a tree trunk, erupted from the ground. It crossed the distance in an instant, the sound of tearing thunder arriving a second after the impact. It struck Ubelina dead center. She screamed, a sound of pure, searing agony as her flesh burned and power ravaged her demonic energy. She plummeted from the sky, barely conscious. She fumbled inside her robe, her fingers closing around a small vial. She drank the phoenix tear, and the blessed fluid went to work, knitting her charred flesh back together. She regained her focus just in time to hear a voice right behind her ear. Are you forgetting about me? Jin's claws, which had been aimed for the sky, now found their target in her back. They sank deep into her flesh. Yubelina cried out in pain and surprise. She tried to muster her strength, to blast him off, but the impact and the raw, immense physical power of his grip were too much. He was an anchor of solid muscle and bone she could not budge. You keep forgetting about me, he growled, a sick amusement in his voice. He wrapped his legs around her wings, and with a horrifying surge of strength, crushed the delicate bones. They began to fall. Yubelina screamed, a desperate, terrified sound. Let go of me, you bastard! Let me go! They plummeted from the sky, a tangled mass of limbs and wings, aimed headfirst for the unyielding ground. Yubelina looked up past his shoulder and saw the predatory, merciless smile on his face. In that moment, she knew her fate. They hit the ground with the force of a meteor. The instant they crashed, a second, smaller bolt of lightning struck the tangled pair, a follow-up shot from Akeno. It wasn't as powerful as the first, but it did its job. Overwhelmed, broken, and at her absolute limit, Yubelina resorted to her namesake. She self-destructed in a massive, fiery explosion. Boom! The blast launched Jin like a ragdoll. He slammed into the thick trunk of a nearby tree with enough force to crack the wood, before falling to the ground in a heap. Konako was at his side instantly. Man, Jin groaned, pushing himself up. You queens are both crazy. Akeno landed gracefully near the smoking crater. Era, speak for yourself. You told me to hit without caring for you if I saw a chance. Of course, I took it. A flicker of movement from the crater drew their attention. Yubelina rose into the air, battered and smoking, but a second, empty vial fell from her hand. She was fully healed, but her magical reserves were clearly low. Jin looked from the hovering queen to Akeno. I believe you can take care of her. Of course, Akeno said, unfurl her wings, in her priestess robes. A smile that promised nothing but pain spread across her face. Believe in me, and she took off. Yubelina, fueled by pure rage, attacked first. She unleashed a volley of fire bombs, each one exploding with concussive force, turning the sky between them into a churning hellscape. Akeno didn't even move. She simply raised a hand, and a shield of crackling, golden lightning formed in front of her, absorbing the explosions without effort. Is that all the great bomb queen of Phoenix can muster? Akeno taunted, her voice dripping with sadistic pleasure. How disappointing! Enraged, Yubelina began to gather her remaining energy for one final, massive attack. Akeno saw the opening. She vanished in a flash of speed, reappearing high above the charging queen. Too slow, Akeno whispered. She clapped her hands together. A net of lightning descended, wrapping around Yubelina and constricting, burning, and paralyzing her in midair. Yubelina screamed as her demonic energy was violently suppressed. This is the end, Akeno declared. She raised her hand, and all the ambient lightning in the air converged, forming a spear of pure, white gold thunder. With a final, beautiful, and utterly merciless smile, she hurled it downward. The spear pierced Yubelina, and for a moment, the world was nothing but blinding light. Lord Riser's queen, Yubelina, has retired. The disembodied, professional voice of the announcer echoed across the battlefield, a declaration of a stunning victory. Lord Riser's queen, Yubelina, has retired. Lord Riser's bishop, Ravel Phoenix, has retired. The immediate threat was gone. Akeno landed gracefully, her breathing slightly heavy but her smile triumphant. Jin looked between her and Konako, his expression all business. Let's get to Rias, he commanded. Riser must have been informed by now. He knows he's all that's left of his team. Akeno and Konako nodded, following his instruction without a word. The plan was entering its final phase. As they reached an open area, Akeno unfurled her dark, demonic wings. Okay, I'll go ahead, she said, before launching herself into the sky. Konako looked at Jin, then unfurled her own small, white wings. I will go, too. Go on, Jin replied, already breaking into a hard sprint. I'll be right behind you. The two devils took to the air, their flight paths direct and unobstructed as they soared toward the student council building. Jin, however, was bound to the earth. He vaulted over fallen debris, dodged around craters, and crashed through the treeline, the obstacles of the ravaged battlefield slowing his pace. He could see their silhouettes shrinking against the artificial sky. Shit, he thought, his lungs starting to burn. I should have factored in a flight-capable piece for me. Always focusing on the brute force approach. A power like Kizaru's would be perfect right now. As he kept running, a new announcement crackled through his earpiece, cold and impersonal. Gremory Knight, Kiba Ueto, has retired. Jin's jaw tightened. Better pick up the pace. He burst through the final line of trees, the school building now in full view. It was a hellscape. The roof was engulfed in a maelstrom of swirling crimson demonic energy and roaring orange hellfire. He could see Akeno and Konako closing in, two dark specks against the fiery backdrop. He felt a sliver of relief, at least the full team was finally gathering to take down the final boss. Now things would be okay. He reached the building's entrance and threw himself inside, taking the stairs 2, 3 at a time. The sounds of battle grew louder, echoing down the empty concrete stairwell. Then, 2 more announcements came, one right after the other, each one a hammer blow to his gut. Gremory Rook, Konako Tuchao, has retired. Gremory Bishop, Asia Argento, has retired. Hearing Konako's name, Jin's blood ran cold. He pushed himself harder, his muscles screaming in protest as he launched himself up the final flight of stairs. What the hell went wrong? He kicked open the door to the roof and was met with a scene of utter devastation. The rooftop was a cratered wasteland. Akeno stood protectively in front of Rias, her clothes in tatters, a flickering shield of lightning the only thing between them and the monster standing before them. And on the ground, Rias was on her knees, cradling the broken, unconscious form of Issei Hyudu. Riser Phoenix had always taken his life for granted. He was beautiful, he was powerful, he was immortal. He was enjoying this. He was toying with Rias Gremory simply because he could. She was flinging her pathetic power of destruction at him, actually thinking she could wear him down. It was adorable. He let her waste her energy. No matter what happened in this little game, he couldn't truly lose. Then, 2 of her exhausted pawns stumbled onto the roof, looking haggard from their earlier fights. The knight and the one with the gauntlet. As if their joining would make any difference. Riser was a phoenix, a being of pure, regenerating fire. He was above them. The red one with the gauntlet seemed to be blabbering something before charging him like a complete idiot. Seeing the first fool move, the knight idiot followed. Riser prepared to teach them some manners. And then the announcement came, a cold shock that cut through his leisurely arrogance. Lord Riser's queen, Ubelina, has retired. Lord Riser's bishop, Ravel Phoenix, has retired. Unacceptable. A switch flipped inside him. The playful, arrogant smile vanished, replaced by a fury. Riser was no longer playing. The knight came at him, a blade of ice held at the ready. Riser's fist ignited with hellfire. He easily sidestepped the sword thrust and drove his flaming punch straight through Kiba's guard. The fire engulfed the knight, and in an instant, he was gone. Gremory Knight, Kiba Ueto, has retired. Riser turned his incandescent rage on the other one, the vermin with the gauntlet. He would pay. Riser decided to make this painful. He appeared before Issei and drove a simple, brutal punch into his gut, not even bothering with a spell. The boy, already exhausted, crumpled, barely resisting. Riser is angry, the phoenix snarled, his voice a low growl as he began speaking. This vermin has angered Riser. Riser must teach this vermin a lesson. He grabbed Issei by the hair and began slapping him across the face, the sound echoing across the rooftop. Seeing her pawn being brutalized, Rias intensified her attacks, but Riser simply regenerated from the blasts, his fury unabated. Then, the other 2 arrived, a slutty-looking one with wings and a little stone-faced cutie, Riser thought. They landed on the roof, shouting something about how it was over for him. An idea, cruel and brilliant, formed in Riser's mind. He would use the vermin as a shield. He hoisted the barely conscious Issei into his arms and charged the newcomers. Akeno and Konako launched their attacks, but hesitated, unwilling to hit their comrade. Riser used that hesitation, using Issei's body to block a blast of lightning meant for him, and fired a quick, opportunistic fireball that caught Konako off guard, eliminating her. The Gremory team was in disarray, unable to properly attack the man who was now using their friend as a meat shield. While they were paralyzed with indecision, Riser saw his next opening. He tossed Issei's limp body toward Rias' tank, her ball of destruction, forcing her to catch him. As her attention was diverted, an Asia's healer who was rattled seeing Issei's situation get caught off guard, Riser fired a concentrated blast of fire. Akeno moved to intercept it, but it was too late. The blast caught Asia, eliminating her instantly. Riser fired another fireball at Rias, but Akeno stood in path. Issei, cradled in Rias's arms, watched it all. He saw his friends eliminated because of him. He saw the pain and despair on Rias's face. His anger, his shame, and his powerlessness boiled over into a single, roaring inferno in his soul. He was ready to give it all up, to activate Balance Breaker even if it cost him his life. It was in that moment of absolute despair, as Riser stood laughing over the ruins of her team, that the heavy metal door to the rooftop was kicked clean off its hinges and sent flying across the battlefield. Jin Kazuma stepped through the opening. Jin kicked the door off its hinges and stepped onto the roof. The scene was one of utter devastation. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and ash. In the center of it, Akeno stood defiantly, her clothes torn and a flickering shield of lightning barely holding. Behind her, Rias was on her knees, her face a mask of despair as she cradled Issei's fading form. The last motes of golden light from his elimination were dissolving into the air. He was too late for them. But he wasn't too late for this. His body, honed by experience, didn't freeze. It kept moving, his mind already calculating, adjusting, evaluating the variables. On his side, one battered queen, one heartbroken king with the power of destruction, and himself. On the other, Riser Phoenix. An immortal monster, a big pussy standing unscathed. Riser ran a hand through his perfectly styled blonde hair, a look of bored contempt on his face. Look, another vermin has crawled up from its hole. No matter. Lord Riser will simply put down another insect. Jin didn't waste a breath on a reply. A low growl rumbled in his chest as his claws of hardened toki shot from his knuckles. His eyes bled into a three-tomo, his skin took on a metallic sheen, and raw life force energy coiled around him like a shroud. Akeno, he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. I'm going in. Support fire. Rias, the second you see an opening, you hit him with everything you have. The two women, startled from their despair, found a new anchor. A spark of determination returned to their eyes. Akeno gathered her remaining magic, lightning crackling around her. Rias, having promised Issei, rose to her feet, a swirling vortex of destructive energy forming around her. Jin pushed off the roof with explosive force, a crimson-eyed blur shooting toward the phoenix. Riser simply stood there, his guard wide open, a smirk on his face. He feared nothing. Jin didn't hesitate. His claws, laced with the venomous energy of Toki, plunged deep into Riser's chest. A choked grunt of genuine pain escaped Riser's lips. He looked down at the claws embedded in his torso. What do you hope to achieve with this, vermin? Riser will just heal. Jin's response was a feral grin. This. He didn't retract his claws. Instead, he exerted his immense physical strength, tearing upward. A sickening sound of ripping flesh and cracking bone echoed across the roof as he carved a bloody path from Riser's chest toward his shoulder. The pain was incandescent. Riser screamed and unleashed a point-blank stream of hellfire from his free hand. Jin held on for a split second, trying to cause as much damage as possible, literally prying Riser's chest open before the sheer power of the flames blasted him away. He flew through the air, going through the gap between Akeno and Rias as they closed in on Riser. Riser's gaping wound was already closing, steam rising from the rapidly regenerating flesh. He looked at the two women, who now had powerful spells ready to launch. Why do you keep resisting? Riser is stronger than you. You will pay for what you did to them, you bastard. Rias roared, her grief and rage fueling her power. She hurled the sphere of pure destruction at him. Do you think Riser will just stand here and take that? Riser snarled, unfurling his wings of fire and launching into the sky. The destructive orb sailed harmlessly underneath him and detonated against the far side of the roof. He was safe in the air. Or so he thought. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck him in sky, sending him screaming in agony. You're not forgetting about me, are you? Akeno's teasing voice echoed from below. You bitch! Riser will roast you alive, he shrieked, his body convulsing from the lightning. A shadow cut through the air, approaching his position at impossible speed. It was Jin, having used Toki excessively in his legs to generate explosive power. You keep getting distracted, man, Jin growled. His fist, charged with Toki, smashed into Riser's face. The impact sent the phoenix hurtling back down to the ground in trees like a meteor. He crashed through the tree, shattering it and carving a trench in the earth. Payback, Jin muttered as he landed. Down below the destruction trail. Riser, get up! These mongrels! Riser roared, struggling to his feet. Riser will burn you all to ash. Keep your mouth shut! Rias bellowed from above, already in position. Another massive sphere of destructive power descended, engulfing the dazed Riser in a catastrophic explosion. He screamed ah, the sound raw with pain of being destroyed. For the first time in his pampered, immortal life, Riser Phoenix was being truly challenged. He was being hurt, broken, and humiliated. And by whom? A fiancée he meant to use as a broodmare, a titillating slut he planned to add to his harem, and some unknown human vermin. He was supposed to be winning. Now, because of this vermin's, he was feeling real, lingering pain. Riser couldn't accept it. He couldn't imagine being defeated by beings he considered far beneath him. Rage, pure and absolute, took over. Fire erupted around him, engulfing him in a towering pillar of flame. But he was given no time to recover. Jin was already on him, a crimson-eyed demon emerging from the smoke. What's the matter, Riser? Feeling pain? Riser didn't speak. He swung his fist in a straight jab, wreathed in fire, aiming to incinerate Jin on the spot. But it didn't happen. Jin's eyes, saw the attack trajectory before it was even fully launched. He ducked under the fiery punch, fire exploded behind and seeing his opening, drove his own fist into Riser's jaw, sending him crashing through another tree. Jin had shifted his tactics. Claws created wounds that could be healed. Fists caused blunt trauma, shock, disorientation. The goal wasn't to kill him, it was to overwhelm him. Riser found his footing only to see two attacks, a ball of destruction and a bolt of lightning already upon him. He tried to get back on his feet and to dodge. He dodged Rias's blast, but couldn't outrun the speed of lightning. The bolt struck him, and he staggered, convulsing. The pillar of fire dissipated, revealing a panting, enraged Riser Phoenix. But he was given no time to recover. Jin was already on him. What's the matter, Riser? Feeling pain? Jin taunted. Riser didn't speak. He swung his fist, wreathed in hellfire, aiming to incinerate the human on the spot. But it didn't happen. Jin's eyes, glowing with a faint crimson light that saw not just movement but intent, predicted the attack. He ducked under the fiery arc, and as the blow sailed harmlessly over his head burning the tree behind, he drove a devastating uppercut into Riser's ribs. There was a sickening crack as bone gave way. Riser was lifted off his feet, his breath stolen. Jin didn't let up. A vicious hook snapped Riser's head to the side, followed by a straight cross that sent him stumbling backward. Riser blasted fire from his feet, a desperate attempt to create space, to get airborne, to escape this monster. But the moment he was out of Jin's immediate reach, a bolt of lightning from Akeno struck his back, paralyzing him for a split second. Before he could recover, a sphere of crimson destruction from Rias forced him to dive sideways directly back into Jin's waiting arms. This time, it was elbows. Short, vicious, concussive blows to the head, the neck, the collarbone. Riser's flesh would sizzle as it instantly regenerated from one hit, only for the sound to be silenced by the wet crunch of the next impact. Jin was a machine. A left hook. A right cross. Riser tried to bring his guard up, but Jin's knee drove into his stomach, doubling him over. An uppercut. Always the uppercut. The Phoenix's panicked thoughts raced, a frantic mantra of disbelief and fury. He couldn't get any distance from the human. If he did, he'd be bombarded by spells. He tried to regenerate, to push through the pain, but another punch slammed into his jaw. Jin's movements were a blur, his crimson eyes tracking every twitch of Riser's muscles, every flicker of demonic energy, countering every move before it was even made. But in close quarters, the human was overwhelming him. The sizzle of knitting bone was instantly silenced by the crack of it breaking again. He was healing only to provide new flesh for Jin to destroy. It was a systematic, brutal dismantling. He was trapped in a vortex of pain. Riser knew if this continued, he would lose. He would be beaten into submission by these lesser beings. Humiliated. Unacceptable. In a final, desperate Hail Mary, he made a decision. As Jin moved in for another punch, Riser ignored his defenses and took the blow head-on. The force of the Toki-infused fist launched him backward like a cannonball, directly into the path of Akeno's next lightning bolt. He endured the searing pain, using the momentum and his last reserves of strength to shoot through the air, a flaming missile aimed directly at the Priestess of Thunder. Rias and Akeno, having just unleashed their spells, couldn't react in time, especially Akeno, who was already floating at a low altitude and was nearly drained of magic. Riser, ignoring the smoking wounds and the screaming agony racking his own body, reached her and unleashed a full-power, point-blank fire barrage. Overwhelmed, Akeno's shield shattered, and she was engulfed in the blast. Gramarye Queen, Akeno Himejima, has retired. Riser hovered in the air, panting, a smug, triumphant laugh bubbling from his lips. He had done it. He had taken out their biggest ranged threat. But before he could even finish his laugh, a shadow was upon him. Jin was already there. Without a word, he drove his clasped hands together like a sledgehammer into Riser's back, pummeling him straight out of the sky and driving him into the hard concrete of the roof with a sickening crash. Riser was falling. Jin's sledgehammer blow had shattered his balance, sending him plummeting from the sky. In that split second of descent, his panicked eyes locked onto his target of opportunity, Rias. She stood frozen, her face a mask of shock and horror at Akeno's elimination, completely defenseless. She stood frozen, a statue carved from shock. The light had gone out of her emerald eyes, replaced by a hollow, glassy horror as she stared at the space where Akeno had been. Her face, usually a mask of noble pride, was now a pale, slack canvas of disbelief. She was a ghost in her own body, completely defenseless. A cruel, desperate smirk twisted Riser's lips. He still had enough power for attack. He gathered a swirling ball of hellfire in his palm and fired it. Rias saw the inferno approaching. She tried to move, to muster her power, but her body wouldn't obey. She had pushed herself for the first time in her life, and the emotional shock of watching Akeno had left her in shock. She tried to command her legs to move, to summon the shield of her power of destruction, but her synapses were fried, her nerves severed by grief. She was helpless. The hellfire engulfed her. Riser hit the ground with a sickening, wet crunch that vibrated through the cracked earth. The impact created a shallow crater. Before the dust could even mushroom upwards, Jin was upon him. He dropped from the sky like a falcon, a dark blur against the smoke, driving both folded knees into Riser's chest with the force of a pile driver. There was a wet, cracking sound of splintering bone as Riser's ribcage imploded, shards of white, hot bone erupted inwards, piercing his lungs. A geyser of blood, dark and arterial, erupted from his mouth in a violent, choking spray that misted the air. He straddled Riser, his fist raised, ready to cave Riser's face in. With the last of his strength, Riser blasted a wave of fire, a concussive blast that threw Jin off him like a rag doll. Jin hit the ground, rolled once, his shoulder grinding into the dirt, and was back on his feet in a fluid, predatory crouch. He watched as Riser, coughing up gobbets of blood, rose unsteadily from his own crater. A fire erupted from the grotesque wounds in Riser's chest, not as an attack, but as an act of self-consumption. The flames spread with terrifying speed, crawling up his torso, engulfing his limbs, transforming his very flesh into a roaring, humanoid inferno. His skin glowed like molten rock, his features obscured by the heat haze. Even if you are a better fighter, it doesn't matter, human, Riser's voice echoed, distorted and layered by the roar of the flames. Every time you touch Riser, you will burn. Soon, you will be defeated by your own injuries and finished by me. You have reached your limit. Riser will show you the true meaning of devil superiority. You will learn your place. His claws of hardened toki extended with a wet, tearing sound from his fingertips, longer and sharper than before, glinting like obsidian scalpels. He was done with blunt force. This was now about maximum lethality. His heartbeat slowed to a deep, heavy thud, a drumbeat in his chest. His vision narrowed, the world fading to a grainy, monochrome grey until the only thing left in vibrant, searing color was the blazing figure of Riser Phoenix. His muscles coiled like steel springs, his claws ready to rip and tear. He had reached the zone. There was only one thought left in his mind, a raw, primal command. Asterisk no limit. Asterisk. He exploded forward. Riser, cloaked in his fire armor, raised a forearm to block the anticipated jab. But Jin's crimson eyes flared. The jab was a lie. In a movement too fast to track for Riser, the jab became a hook. The impact wasn't a slap, it was a detonation. Jin's callus, hard as diamond, bored into Riser's cheekbone with the force of a piston. The fiery flesh gave way, and his claw tore a bloody furrow straight through Riser's face, from cheek to jaw, exiting the other side in a spray of molten blood and shattered teeth. Riser felt a pain so absolute, so blinding, that he couldn't even scream. But his pain didn't matter to Jin. It was fuel. Before Riser's guard could even recover, Jin's other hand, a blur of motion, found its mark. It plunged deep into Riser's solar plexus, the claws tearing through regenerating flesh and muscle with a sickening, wet sound. With a guttural roar that tore from his own lungs, Jin didn't retract his hand. He lifted. He hoisted Riser's entire, burning body into the air, impaled on his arm like a macabre trophy. Riser's mind went blank from the agony. Instinct took over. He grabbed Jin, his fire body intensifying, trying to burn the human off him, to turn him into ash. Jin threw him. He didn't just release him, he slammed Riser's body down with all his might, driving him into the ground like a stake. He stayed on him, riding him, giving him no space, no quarter. The ground and pound began. It was a maelstrom of mutual destruction. Jin's right claw tore into Riser's shoulder, ripping through flaming muscle. His left fist, a hammer of bone and fury, shattered Riser's orbital bone with a wet crack. Riser's hellfire engulfed Jin completely, the sizzle of his burning flesh, the smell of his own cooking meat, a constant, gruesome soundtrack to the beating. They both screamed. Two primal roars of agony and unbreakable determination, echoing across the area. Equals. Jin didn't let up. His claws were a blur, tearing, ripping, gouging, trying to find something vital beneath the constant, painful regeneration. His own flesh was melting from his bones, the pain a white-hot nova threatening to consume his consciousness, but his body didn't stop. His healing factor was fighting a losing battle, trying to regenerate tissue that was being subjected to constant, unrelenting hellfire. His hardening was gone. His mind was going blank from pain. But he refused to give up. His entire being, his very soul, was focused on one singular purpose, winning. He would not take a single step back. In response to his absolute, unyielding desire, his body accepted a new reality. There was no running away. The only path was forward, through the pain. The regenerating factor that had reached its limit didn't just break, it evolved. The sizzling, blackened flesh began to knit back together, new skin forming over raw, weeping muscle even as the flames licked at it. Steam hissed from his wounds in a constant, agonizing plume. The rate of his regeneration began to outpace the rate of immolation. His body was answering his will, forcing itself past its known limits. Jin's blows never stopped. If Jin had a system, it would showing his progress 100%, 105%, 110%. Seeing the human not letting up, Riser's patience finally shattered into pure, terrified rage. He unleashed a massive, point-blank explosion of fire, that blasted Jin away from him. Riser staggered to his feet, his own body a ruin that was struggling to reform, the flames flickering weakly. "It's futile, human," he shrieked, his voice cracking. "Admit defeat. Riser is a phoenix. Riser can do this indefinitely. I will never stop, no matter how much you attack me." From the rising smoke and steam, a figure stepped out. Jin's clothes were gone, vaporized. His body was a patchwork of charred, blackened flesh and freshly regenerated, pink skin, a horrifying map of his ordeal. He was smiling, a bloody, feral grin that promised more pain. "Who said you're the only one who can heal, Riser?" Riser's eyes widen, the flames in them guttering in disbelief. He watches, disbelieving, as Jin's blackened flesh begins to knit back together, veins pulsing like dark worms beneath new pink tissue. Steam rises off his body in thick, ghostly plumes. His healing shouldn't be possible at that speed, and yet, it is. "Does it matter?" Jin asked, cracking his neck with a series of wet, popping sounds as he settled back into a fighting stance. "Let's fight, Riser. To see who can last until the end." The fire in Jin's eyes was not one of strategy, it was the gleam of pure, unadulterated joy. Toki exploded from his core, a concussive force that didn't just close the distance, it annihilated it. Riser, still reeling, perceived the human not as moving, but as vanishing from one point and reappearing in the next, a blur of motion his senses could not hope to track. Jin's Sharinon spun, a crimson vortex that was already 3 steps ahead of Riser's every panicked thought. It saw the flicker of intent as Riser tried to raise a fiery guard of feint. It registered the shift in weight as he attempted to sidestep a trap. The assault began. It was not a series of strikes, but a single, unending composition of violence. A hard, snapping jab snapped Riser's head back, the impact instantly followed by a low, brutal kick. Jin's shin cracked against Riser's thigh with the wet thud of a cleaver against meat, and the phoenix's leg buckled, his stance shattered. He stumbled forward, directly into a rising knee that crashed into his solar plexus, driving the air from his lungs in a choked, guttural gasp. Before he could collapse, Jin's fingers tangled in the back of his hair, yanking him down into a vicious elbow strike that split his brow open. A faint sizzle echoed as flesh and bone knitted themselves back together. Crack! Jin's follow-up hook, a piston of Toki-infused force, shattered the newly reformed jaw. He was a maelstrom of martial discipline, a suffocating vortex of pain. A spinning back kick sent Riser staggering sideways, but before he could fall, Jin closed the gap with a boxer's shuffle, unleashing a blurring 3-punch combo jab, cross, hook that hammered Riser's head back and forth like a speed bag. Riser was drowning. He couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't even process one agony before the next was inflicted. His regeneration, his ultimate defense, had become his personal torture. His body was a canvas, and Jin was a master artist, painting it in strokes of pure agony, healing it only to provide fresh, unmarred space for his next terrible creation. Jin's grin was a thing of terror, stretched from ear to ear, a gleeful mask of a predator in its absolute element. "I am having the time of my life." Jin roared, his voice an ecstatic snarl as he ducked under a wild, desperate swing and drove his fist deep into Riser's kidney. "What about you, Lord Riser?" The Phoenix's mind, once a fortress of aristocratic arrogance, was now a crumbling ruin. He was losing. The concept was alien, a poison. He was special, chosen, superior. This wasn't supposed to happen. A human, a piece of mortal vermin, was beating the living shit out of him, and was enjoying himself doing it. Humans were supposed to be below him, not above. He saw the human's wounds seal over with impossible speed, saw the pure, demonic joy in his spinning red eyes, and his will began to fracture. He was fighting a monster that mirrored his own healing, yet hit with a finality he could never match. A question, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of pain. For what? Why was he enduring this? For his pride? For a marriage he barely cared about? For what? The next hook wasn't aimed at his head. It was a brutal, digging blow that tore through the hastily regenerating flesh of his abdomen. Riser looked down in dawning horror and saw a ruin of his own insides, his intestines spilling out in a bloody, steaming mess before his own fire desperately cauterized the wound shut. He didn't want to feel this. Not this much pain. It was too much. It was over. A primal, desperate need to escape overwhelmed every shred of his pride. Wings of pure flame erupted from his back. He pushed off the ravaged ground, rocketing into the sky, away from the pain, away from that red-eyed demon. He was rising. He was getting away. He was free. He had escaped hell. But from the corner of his eye, he saw her. Rias, hovering in the sky, her own crimson eyes burning with a cold, vengeful fire. A sphere of pure, swirling destruction red energy, was already cupped in her hand. She hurled it. The spell was his sentence. It struck Riser in the back, the power of destruction tearing through his wings and sending him plummeting back down to the hell he had just fled. He landed in a broken heap. He looked up, his body trying to heal, and saw him. The demon. Making his way toward him with a sprint. He was smiling, a predator approaching its fallen, terrified prey. Terror, absolute and profound, filled Riser Fenix. The next words that came from his mouth were not a roar of defiance, but a broken, pathetic sob. I quit. Take me out of this game. I quit.